Halloween
forever.
So I got one for you. Ready? Why aren't there any panhandlers from Indiana?
No clue.
Why aren't there panhandlers from Indiana?
Steve's going to try. This is going to be a stretch. I'm not saying you can't get it.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not going to get it.
Yeah.
Steve, it's because beggars can't be Hoosiers.
Yep. Wasn't going to get that.
Welcome, boys and ghouls, to a motherfucking Showdown episode of Halloween is Forever. I'm Brian.
I'm Steve, and I don't do the sports references, so that's why I couldn't get that one.
It's the Hoosier State. It's not just sports. Hey, speaking of folks from out of state, who that handsome boy be over there? We got one of them guests on this here podcast. Who is that over there?
Louie, Haunted Hangover. What's up, guys?
Hey, it's our old pal Louie from the Haunted Hangover Podcast, joining us once again for another one of these son of a bitchin' Showdown episodes. How you doing, Louie?
I'm good, man. Drinking some coffee right now. Still kind of waking up at this point. So, you know, I'm gonna wake up for you guys. Don't worry about it. Won't be asleep.
That's
dream world.
different type of recording setup. Normally, you know, we're recording on like a Friday night or something. We're getting after some beers. Not today, boys and ghouls. We are recording on a at least here in Western Pennsylvania, dreary Sunday morning. We're all just getting woken up here. Busy Sunday for everyone, but Louie kind enough to come on and talk to us once again about some kind of fun. You've become our kind of go-to for fun, 80s and 90s nostalgia showdowns here.
I appreciate that.
Last time you were on, yeah, we did. You talked about Doug last time we were on.
I remember.
We did Nickelodeon Halloween, and then is this your second or third time on the show?
I think it might be my third at this point.
Yeah.
It all blends together, man. It's like no time has passed since the last time we did this. So
I know. And I've been on your show talking about like 80s or 80s and 90s Halloween commercials. So yeah, they kind of blend together after a while. But
yeah,
today we ain't talking.
I gotta get you back on mine, man. I gotta get you back on mine in the future, dude. I've made more appearances on your show than you have on mine. So I gotta change that before the year ends.
We'll wrap. I mean, spooky season's right around the corner, guys. This is our June Showdown episode, believe it or not, which means it's almost 4th of July, right? Which means that's like the midpoint for summer, as far as I'm concerned. And the second half of summer, that's just pre-Halloween. So after 4th of July, then you start peeking around the corner at the old Walgreens. You know, you see what's down that aisle. You got any candy down there, boys?
As soon as you clear out all the red, white, and blue little Debbie cakes, that's when it's time for the pumpkin guys to come out.
Bring them some bitch of pumpkins in there. That's what I say.
Funny enough, I'm already like, apparently people are texting me and they're finding like pumpkins, like not jack-o'-lanterns, but just like faux pumpkins at Michael's and stuff like that, which is kind of crazy that it's time of this recording. It's like June 2nd now or something, 3rd. I don't know. It's early June. And I'm like, that's insane. Yeah. I feel like it even starts even sooner. Like every year, like it's going to be like Halloween's going to end and they're just going to leave shit out like for the following year. That's where it's eventually going to lead to.
Michael's out.
Yeah, they do.
Michael's Wiles out. Michael's has 3 seasons. It's 4, maybe 4. It's Thanksgiving, which is 2 days, I think.
Yep.
Thanksgiving exists for 2 days. So they really have 3 seasons. It's Christmas, springtime, and fall. That's it. That summer doesn't exist in Michael's. They just got those 3. Yeah, I would not be surprised to learn that there's Halloween stuff out at Michael's. They have no shame over there, and I love them for it.
Yeah,
they want you to start your crafts early so they get done on time. They know everybody's full of procrastination.
Yes,
it's funny too because they when you go and you look at certain holidays like Easter, Thanksgiving. You mentioned Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving always gets like the shit end of the stick. Like they don't ever like there's no love for like fake turkey, like turkeys and things like that for your table. It's so weird. Nope. It's like literally like ghost goblins. Santa Claus, like it's like
the next day.
Yeah, they'll sprinkle in a fake turkey here and there and some like leaves for like, and like what's it called? What's the basket
cornucopia?
Called? Yeah, cornucopia. There you go. Like you'll get like one or two of those, and it's just like screw that. Let's just put out like elves and presents and string lights. It is funny.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's Halloween night. A lot of times I'll stay up till like the wee hours of the morning, just milking every last hour out of the Halloween season, watching movies and stuff. And I swear it's like 3 a.m., on like Halloween going into November 1st at like 3 a.m. Christmas commercials started. It's like it's like overnight. It's like Disney. Like Tubi is like how Disney World just switches over the night after Halloween and everything's Christmas the next day. That's the whole world is taking on that model. Which, listen, I ain't mad about it. What are you gonna? How many cornucopias can you really see? You know what I mean? Thanksgiving.
I don't own a cornucopia at all, so I don't even think I've ever owned one.
Although I do want to do a movie now. Eli Roth did Thanksgiving last year, which was a lot of fun. But I want to do a movie called Cornucorpsia. And it's a cornucopia that murders people and or is filled with corpses. I don't know which yet, but
I think full of corpses is the way to go. And it just turns into like that Lars von Trier film, The House That Jack Built, and instead he's just dumping bodies inside of a cornucopia.
Is that the one where they like cut people's genitalia off and all that, or which one is that? That's Lars von Trier, isn't it?
No, that's Antichrist.
Sounds like Lars von Trier, just by that description.
No, that's Antichrist. You're right.
Yes.
I'm thinking of Antichrist.
Yeah. The House That Jack Built. It's the one with Kevin Dillon, and it's just such a fucking bummer of a film. Like everybody,
it's mean spirited, but it's great. It's a well crafted film. It's just super mean spirited. But all Lars von Trier movies are super mean spirited. That's just his thing. That's his MO when it comes to his films. So
Yeah, I imagine every morning he wakes up and it's just his alarm clock goes off like Groundhog's Day, and it's just like, no more Mr. Nice Guy. He just goes up, just kicks a puppy as soon as he wakes up.
Kicks. I think he stomps on them. That's probably what he does.
Stomps on him, pepper sprays the milkman.
God.
Speaking of the milkman, guys, and segues, we got a little milkman in one of these dang stories here today. We are talking about a little show called Eerie, Indiana. A short-lived masterpiece, as far as I'm concerned, consisting of a scant 19 episodes that aired between the years of our Lord 1991 and 1992. Louie, I know you are a fan of this show. That's why I reached out when our Patreon vote, or not Patreon. This was a social media vote. Our social media friends and listeners picked this. We had three options. Our spinny ass wheel gave us three options. One of them was Eerie, Indiana. I'm not going to lie. I did campaign for it a little bit. But when it did win, I was like, we got to call up Louie, because I know he likes this show. I know he's down with this show.
Yeah, it's weird. I have a strange history with Eerie, Indiana. I remember it being on. So you said 1991, right? I remember watching it a little later, because I think that was like the original release when it first came out.
I did too.
It was more in syndication. And I feel like because I remember it being on Fox, like Fox Kids.
Yeah.
Me too. I watched it on Fox Kids as well. Maybe like probably 93, 94.
Yeah. And it was like, it was kind of plugged in between Power Rangers, which at that time was the biggest thing in the world, and then Goosebumps, which was a little later. And it's weird because, you talk to people and, certain people watch the show, and there's people that have no clue it existed that are even around our age. Whereas like I just never watched, and I think it's just because it was so short-lived. It didn't have a long run, and it's strange, man. There's people even to this day, I'll tell them, like, have you ever watched Eerie, Indiana? And they have no clue what I'm talking about. But they know Goosebumps, they know Power Rangers, which was on the same kind of block at times. And then they had that weird offshoot that they produced afterwards, The Other Dimension, I think it's called.
Yes, and I still haven't watched it. And I know it's on Prime, and I just haven't yet. It's different kids. It's different characters. I have not watched it yet. I will get around to it eventually, but that was 100% not on my radar as a kid.
That was on no one's radar, because I don't think even the show, when you watch it, it's produced completely different. It feels like a different show. Obviously, two different kids. From what I remember, because I don't revisit that one as much, they try to kind of sprinkle in references to the original run and characters, but there's just something off. And I just think it was the magic of that first initial, 19, that first season technically of the show. It's just an odd show. Just, you either watched it or you didn't. Even like Are You Afraid of the Dark, which was popular on a different station, but it's just in pop culture, it's so important to all of us, and just it kind of molded a generation of people. And Eerie, Indiana, it's like either you were a fan or you weren't. Just it almost feels like the show itself is like what it's based on is kind of its existence. It's like the show that people forget, or it's so odd and weird that just no one references it.
It was weird because it felt a little outdated even at the time. And I think why it's aged so well is it has almost Steve did a great job of describing it, because I would always tell people it's in that vein of like Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the Dark? But Steve described it perfectly, as he said it was like, because I always said it was the Twilight Zone for kids. But Steve said it's a cross between Pete and the X-Files.
That's a great way of describing it. That's what I was going to say. I think when I was on with you guys last time, I said Pete was the Twin Peaks of that type of show. So, Pete didn't have a lot of horror or spooky elements or monster of the week like X-Files. And I'm a big X-Files fan too. So that's, I guess, like a good comparison is like Pete was like the Twin Peaks for kids, and this is the X-Files for children. It's funny you said that, because I was going to say that too. So great minds think alike.
It has the elements of like being very referential to things that are way outside of what kids would know.
Right. And there's a lot of nostalgic 50s, almost Tim Burton-ish type of 50s type of references and things like that. Even there's a lot of references of stuff of the time. Like, there's literally a Twin Peaks reference in, I think it's Brian's episode.
Yeah, there is.
Yep, I wrote that down.
The Howling is mentioned in one. The Howling, which is, that's...
the Howling.
That was mentioned.
There's a lot of political stuff too, which is weird. Right. Which is what always reminded me of the Twilight Zone. But in any case, guys, we'll get into it. We got 3 dang old episodes. We each picked our favorite episode. We're going to talk about them. We're going to vote on somebody's continuing on some bitch championship strap for the month of June. Let's do a couple of quick things at the top of the show, and we'll jump into it. First and foremost, I know it's Monday, or not Monday morning, it's Sunday morning, so I don't know if anybody's sipping on any beers there. I don't know if Soju Steve's really after it. No judgment, but what are you sipping on, Steve?
It's not that early. We're in the brunch hours, my friend.
I said no judgment. No judgment.
Yeah. No, I just want the audience at home to know we're in the brunch hours. It's 11, so it's fine. We're in the brunch hours of the weekend
right now. We're almost noon.
Yeah, but I'm drinking on some brunch things that would be brunch-ish. But so we're in the summer, right? And I think this is something Louie might appreciate. But Louie, do you have like a lot of the cherry lime Rickies in the?
Yeah.
So
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. So cherry lime Rickies are really like they're pretty popular in New York, but it's a flavor that's been disseminating throughout the U.S. over the years because of Arizona iced tea. They started putting out cherry lime Rickies, but now it's something everybody's kind of getting in the beer world. So I have 2 cherry limeades from different places. Right now, I'm drinking on the Oberon Sunshine, which is a cherry limeade shandy, and it's nice. This shit fucking goes. This would be a great poolside drinker. Like it has kind of the malty back end of it, of the Oberon, but it has just a little bit of just enough tart and citrus on it. I think you would actually really like it, Brian. It's not overly sweet or anything. And then
I fuck with
what
that.
You will hate is the Blake's hard cider I have, which is also a cherry limeade.
Yeah, I'm sure that's sickeningly sweet.
I'll let you know when I get to it. But I think you'd really, if you find that the Bell's Oberon Sunshine cherry limeade shandy, I think you'd really like that. The shit goes.
I get after that. I get after that. Yeah, I well, mine's boring, so I'll go next because as you might have seen, I'm finishing up my protein shake here, boys. I've been on. Listen, for those of you who are loyal listeners, know your boy's been on a little bit of a fitness journey as of late. Went to the doctors in March. They said, "Hey, you gotta take care of this cholesterol situation, boy. You're getting old. You eat like a fucking psychopath." So I've been on a bit of fitness journey here, and I'm going to my daughter's soccer game after this. So, it's typically frowned upon to be drunk at a soccer game, child soccer game. So I squeezed in a little workout right before we got started, and it is though, Steve, this. You may, if there was booze in this, you may actually purchase it and drink it as beer. It is a double chocolate. It's a double chocolate flavored protein situation. So, that does sound a little bit more like a gloop glop piece of shit beer that you'd be into.
Possible. It's got to taste. It's got to be really fudgy. If it's really fudgy, I'll get down on it.
No, it's not. It tastes like protein powder. But I did on Friday night. Had some folks over. It's my youngest daughter's birthday this weekend, so we've been doing a lot of birthday activities, and we had a little barbecue, swimming, a little pool party situation. Friday was also the last day of school for my kids, so we was celebrating. We made some steaks. We got some pizza for the kids, all that stuff, and I did get down on a bunch of. I grabbed some 4-packs of Polliner pills. And some of the Hacker Shore, Munichelis, and Polliner pills. So I was getting down on those fairly hard on Friday. So I did my drinking early in the weekend, I suppose, this weekend. But Louie, what are you sipping on? Some coffee over there?
Yeah, I'm lame. I think the last time I was on your show, I was lame I think I was drinking water. So this time around, getting a little, I've got H2O, always got to have some water. And I'm just drinking an iced coffee here, Stoke, with a little almond milk creamer. I too, I'm on my fitness kick right now. So I'll be honest, I haven't been drinking much beer, even outside of just kind of recording and doing stuff. I've been kind of sticking with a little tequila, club soda, pineapple, just because I'm trying. I've been hitting the gym like 4 days a week, and I'm trying to tone up. So beer, even though what Steve's drinking sounds lovely, and next time I go to a barbecue, I'm gonna have to find something in that realm, because cherry lime, I'm all about that. So I got to give that a try. But yeah, I've been cutting down on the beers here, and just right now I'm just sipping on coffee, because again, like you said, it's it's still the morning, so, and it's Sunday, kind of a lazy day, so I'll have about 5 cups of coffee in some way. So that's what I'm.
I've been up since 6.
Oh no,
I've been up since 6. My kids are up. My kids are up early on the weekends a lot. I'm not a big sleep in guy. I can't go back to sleep once I'm awake. But there's nothing in the world my wife loves more than sleeping in. So I usually will get up with the kids and let her sleep in on the weekends. And I'm that before my eyes are open, I need coffee. So I already had my 5 cups of coffee 4 hours ago. So
I think this is number 3 for
you
me.
Guys don't.
So.
You guys have the luxury of just, not having to get up with kids, screaming in your ear at 6 a.m. So
see, that's what's going to blow you guys' hearts up, is drinking all that fucking coffee. Whereas I'm not going to the gym. I'm just drinking some nice alcohol, which thins my blood out, keeps it going through the heart quicker, just gets it going.
Steve had a nice slow morning, got up, played Fallout, had have a couple beers. I've been making breakfast, and my blood pressure's through the fucking roof right now. All right, guys. Anyway, let's get into these son of a bitchin' episodes. Let me do one more thing before we forget. What I wanted to remind everyone, because I'm really excited, we're going to be doing our second month of our newest Patreon exclusive podcast series. Steve, for those of you who are new to the show, Steve spent the last year making me watch every single one of the Fast and the Furious movies, and then we did our Patreon exclusive podcast talking about those piece of shit movies. I hated them so bad. I wanted to kill Steve. I wanted to lay in traffic, drink bleach. It was horrible. We did it for 10 months, but I got through it, and now it's Brian's turn for a little revenge. For those of you who are signed up over there on patreon.com/Halloween is Forever, perhaps you'll be like our buddy Ron, who's in the chat with us right now in the Discord. Listen to us record live. We oftentimes have our good friends from the Discord or in the Discord listen to us record live. If you want to do that, that's one of the perks you get over there on the Patreon, but you also get that Patreon exclusive podcast. Last month, we did the first episode of our new Patreon exclusive podcast series that instead of Family is Forever, we're calling it Youth Group is Forever. And we are exclusively watching weird, cringy Christian propaganda horror movies. They are mostly about what you're going to go to hell for. Surprise, surprise. That's what they're about. What are you going to go to hell for this month? First month, we watched a little film kind of starring Snoop Dogg called Blood Pageant. In that movie, you go to hell for being on a reality show. Spoiler alert, guess what you're going to go to hell for in the month of June? Louie, any guesses what you might go to hell for in the month of June on our Patreon exclusive podcast?
I'm not sure. I have no idea. I'm curious. What do you go to hell for?
Watching porn.
Oh,
porn.
Okay.
So this one is all...
Hell's going to be full, I guess, at that point, man.
Hell is awaiting us all. You, in June, we are watching a movie called The Lock-In, which is one of the worst films I've ever seen. I think it has, like a 1.2 on IMDb, perhaps, something like that, or Rotten Tomatoes.
It's under 2 stars, and so few movies ever reach that low.
It's so bad. It's one of the cringiest movies I've ever seen. You're going to need multiple sittings to watch it. And it will, spoiler alert, guys, if you look at naked pictures of other humans, you not only are going to hell, you're inviting demons into this world as well, not just the afterlife. You will not just be tortured in the afterlife. You will be tortured in this life by real ass demons. That's what the Lord says to you. So if you're interested at all in hearing that, it's going to be a lot of fun. Go over there to patreon.com/Halloween's Forever and subscribe.
Is it based on per instance of looking at it? Because I'm just trying to figure out.
You mean is it a Jacob Marley, one more link in the chain gets forged every time you jerk off? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, because I go back to the same videos sometimes.
So the literal number of videos you consume.
That one doesn't count.
Oh, that's a good. Yeah.
Yeah.
You've already used that one.
More demons? Yeah. Does that put more demons in for going back to the same video? Or
I think it's actually how much seed you spill. I think, Steve. I think that's what it's based on.
Oh.
Because of course the Lord says 'tis better to spill your seed in the belly of a whore than on the ground, on the dirt. So I think it's all about I think it's a milliliter conversion because they use metric system over there. But we'll figure all that out. We'll do the math for all you math nerds out there. We'll get an Excel sheet going. We'll figure out how many mLs of seed you can spill and how many levels of hell you end up in. We'll do the math, guys. Don't worry.
I think it's the size of your load determines the size of the portal for the demon. So.
It's a rope thing. It might be a rope thing.
Yeah.
All right, guys. We're getting crass on a Sunday here, guys. We're getting crass on a Sunday morning. All right, let's get back to this child's television show.
Working blue on a Sunday.
Working blue on a Sunday. All right, we are going to talk about 3 different episodes. For those of you listening to the last episode, we told you what we're going to be talking about here in terms of the episodes. Steve, or which episodes we're going to talk about. Steve, you are the current reigning champ, it pains me to say. So you get to determine the order in which we go.
Yeah, so Louie's no stranger to this show anymore, so I don't feel the need to go easy on him. So I'm actually going to send.
You've used up all your get out of jail free cards, Louie.
It's cool. No worries.
He's used to it. He's used to it now. So I don't feel the need to hold his hand anymore. So I'm actually going to put Louie up first, and then Brian, you're going to go in the middle.
All right.
And then I'm going to go last.
Okay. Fair enough. Let me remind the viewers out here, and let's just do, you know what, because just to be fair, because we have not, we don't want to take away from Louie's time to do this kind of intro here. There are a couple of things to consider here when it comes to Eerie, Indiana. I'll just tell you who the kind of main characters are that are going to show up several, in all the episodes. The two kind of main characters are Marshall Taylor and Simon Holmes. Marshall Taylor, played by Omri Katz, who many of you will know but from all things spooky, because he is known for being the star in Hocus Pocus, which is, of course, a big giant spooky season movie that a lot of people love. He's in every episode. You also get Simon Holmes, who is his kind of younger de facto little brother, not his blood brother, but like a younger friend. Marshall's moved to the town of Eerie, Indiana, which all the supernatural crazy stuff happens. He's moved here from New Jersey, and he's met and become friends with Justin Shenkaro's character, Simon. Like I said, who becomes his kind of de facto little brother. I guess he's been in a lot of things, but you'll see reoccurring actually in this series. There's some character actors who do show up and stuff, but have become quite famous, made quite a career from voice acting, interestingly enough as well. So Jason Marsden, who's a character who shows up in my episode and comes back a lot. You know him from being, what's the older brother on what's the show? Jesus, Corey Matthews, the Matthews brothers, and
Boy Meets World.
Boy Meets World. My God, all I could think of was Step by Step, because he's in Step by Step too.
He is in Step by
Boy
Step.
Meets World. He's Eric's friend, and then he is the boyfriend of the one sister in Step by Step. But then, and he was great. He's always great. But then he ended up really making a huge, long career that's still going on as primarily a voice actor. But we'll talk more about him in my episode.
One of the more interesting characters he portrayed, which I always got a kick out of, was the really short-lived Munsters Today. He was Eddie Munster on that show too, which obviously it's not as good as the original OG Munsters, but I always enjoyed Munsters Today. And I think that was the late 80s, early 90s. So it would have been around the same time that they were shooting and producing this TV show, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and we talked about an episode of that. I think maybe one of the Christmas episodes is fantastic.
Yeah.
Of that. That's actually a show that I could see gaining a little bit more popularity, because it really flew under the radar for a lot of folks. Anyway, those are kind of the two main characters. There's a whole cast of family members we'll meet, and we'll talk about some other folks as well. A lot of great cameos, although maybe not as pop culturally relevant as Pete and Pete. You're not getting Iggy Pop and stuff like that, but you are getting some cool kind of older, TV actors that you'll definitely recognize in the show. So that's the intro I'll throw out there. And then, Louie, take it away. Tell us about your episode.
So I'll be honest. There are many episodes of this show I love. So this was tough for me to pick just one, but I thought, on brand, Halloween, it'd be kind of silly for me to pick some. I almost picked, and you guys know this, I almost picked another episode, but I said, you know what? Safe bet. My show's predominantly Halloween. I know you guys reference Halloween a lot, obviously. So I said, you know what? We got to talk about the Halloween episode. It'd be sacrilege if we didn't.
I did predict it. It was a little predictable, but it's also a great episode. And for those of you who don't know, we talked about it a lot on the last episode, The Haunted Hangover. Awesome show. I'm a big fan. I listen to every episode. The Haunted Hangover podcast, Louie talks about spooky Halloween stuff all year long. So, of course, I figured you were going to talk about the Halloween episode. But it's not just, this is the Halloween episode. This is also genuinely one of my favorite episodes, too.
Yeah,
the fog budget alone puts it up there for me.
I've got that in my notes. One of the first things that I have here, and just kind of things I love about the episode. But yeah, it was, again, I will call it like it's a basic bitch pick. I say that on my show. Whenever you pick something that's pretty fucking obvious, it's like
we call it we call it Meg Rails. Our former co-host Meg, she would always pick, if we were like, we're talking about exorcism movies, she'd be like, I call The Exorcist shark movies, I call Jaws. So we would rip on her for that, which it's a smart tactic, but it is a predictable pick. But this is a great one. This is a great one.
Super predictable. But at the same time, when you kind of look at all the episodes of the show and you watch all of them, this definitely is. It usually, even I think when you Google the show and you just look up top 10 episodes from Eerie, Indiana, this one always is relatively high on that list. Just because I think of just the overall kind of atmosphere they're going for in the episode, and it's Halloween and kids love Halloween. And it's really in the end, even though nowadays I mostly adults are celebrating it more than anything, it's a holiday, geared towards children. But
sure.
I was like, I have to go with it. We got to talk about it. Funny enough, I actually covered this episode about 2 years ago on my show. So don't remember what we said, but we covered it about 2 years ago, and we both loved the episode. One of my co-hosts, Dave, and I went quite in depth. So if you're curious to listen to us talk about the show for an hour and 15 minutes, you got that to listen to as well.
I do remember that.
In addition to this. So
I won't lie, I did go back and listen to that episode of your podcast, re-listen to it leading up to this, and listen to you and Dave talk about it. So, yeah, and that was actually, I think, what kind of re-spurred my love for this show was listening to that episode, you and Dave talking about it. I was like, damn, I haven't watched that show in a while. Wonder if it's streaming anywhere. Of course it was, and then I've went through, and probably in the last 2 years, watched the whole series at least 2 times through.
Yeah, man. So it's I don't remember what I said in that episode. I'll be honest. I haven't re-listened to it in quite some time. Don't listen to my show back after I release it. So this was all brand new to me, brand new notes and things I noticed. So it's almost like a fresh rewatch for me in a way. I was going to go back and listen to my episode. I said, you know what? I don't want to. I want to just kind of
because you don't want to taint. You might have a whole new perspective.
Exactly.
Listen, you're 2 years older, 2 years wiser. Let's hear the new perspective on it.
So I'll break down the episode. I don't have a longish couple small sentences, paragraphs here, just kind of the synopsis, what happens in the episode. And then I've got a couple of things that I kind of loved. You kind of teased one of them with the fog. But there's certain elements about this episode I love, and a lot of it has to do with smaller things, not kind of the overall plot. There's just tiny things about this episode that I just love. A certain kind of vibe it gives off when it kind of pertains to Halloween as a holiday, both for adults and children. So in the episode, it's Halloween night, obviously. Marshall and Simon, they're gearing up to head out trick-or-treating. They gather all the necessities. If you watch this show, Marshall and Simon know that Eerie, Indiana is a strange place that has monsters, weird people, eccentric characters, all that stuff. So they just want to be prepared.
Yeah.
All the crazy shit they'll encounter on Halloween night, because as we all know, Halloween night is when the dead rise and spirits come back and all that good stuff. Yeah. So they're preparing for the worst. Stakes, holy water, all that good stuff. So we get a shit in your pants joke. Yes, I was about to say
clean underwear.
They even pack extra underwear in case they get scared. So you kind of know what's going to happen.
I had to explain that joke to my daughter this morning. My 9-year-old, who was the one that was up bright and early this morning. We watched these episodes this morning, and she was like, "Why?" She thought it was funny they're bringing underwear. She's like, "Why?" I was like, "In case they get scared and crap their pants." I guess she's like, she thought that was she appreciated that gag.
Which is the one thing I'll say about this episode. Not to dwell on anything negative, but I wish that joke would have come back around, and it doesn't. You know what I mean? Like, it happens early in the episode. They obviously get scared later on and don't reference the underwear again. And that's kind of like it's always been a missed opportunity to me in this episode.
Yeah, if Simon would have been like, Marshall, can I grab a pair of those underwear or something? That would have been a great gag. Yeah, weird that they don't bring it back around. It's just weird. A weird choice. Maybe it was there and they cut it. Who knows? These episodes are about 30 minutes long with commercials when they originally aired. Yeah.
So yeah, they also dress up, before I continue, they also dress up as, I forget the dude's name with the mole on his head. We were children.
Mikhail Gorbachev.
There you go. I wouldn't say I know my politicians. I'm not a big politics guy. So I always remember seeing that dude when I was a kid, and they always made fun of his mole on his bald spot on the top of his head. Weird memory when I was a child, and seeing it here, always get a kick out of that. But
the Berlin Wall falling or whatever, and you're
that
like,
was
man,
that was a big thing.
Freaking mole,
dude. I was like 6, so when that happened, so the last thing I cared more about Halloween than what was happening. I know about it now as an adult, but as a child,
oh yeah, I couldn't have given a shit less.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, so unfortunately, Marshall's mother has to head out to help his dad, who's stranded on the side of the road. His car just kind of breaks down. I think he's coming home from work. They don't really, I don't think they fully explained it, but his car broke down. He's on the side of the road. He needs mom's help. By the way, Marshall's mom, a babe, respectfully. I will always say that.
Straight up babe. Straight up babe.
Respectfully, a babe.
Yeah.
Still kind of a babe to this day if you've seen pictures of her. She's a little older, but still a babe. Again.
Yeah.
Capital words, respectfully. But yeah, this forces I think I said that in my show. Funny enough, I think Dave and I said that too. Respectfully.
Still a babe. Update, guys. Update. Still a babe.
Still a babe. But yeah. So since she has to leave and go help out dad, this forces the boys to have to watch Simon's little brother, Harley, because mom was babysitting Harley. So now they're kind of stuck doing that job. Because side note, his older sister, Cindy, has a big exam and for some reason can't watch a small child. She's studying takes up that much of her life that she can't just have him watch TV and then read her books in the kitchen or something. Whatever. Yeah. She's kind of the bitchy sister. That's kind of always been her, like the entire existence of the show.
Yes, she's the mean teenage sister who's got like teenage problems, right?
Yeah. If anybody's watched Rick and Morty, I feel like the sister Summer on Rick and Morty is based off of this character. Because like for the first couple episodes of Rick and Morty, like Summer is also oblivious to all the dumb science and insanity around her, which is this sister. This sister is oblivious to how weird her town is and all the goofy shit that happens in it. And like she always has a way to write off in her mind what's happening.
Yeah.
She's always caught up with studying and she's always in the book, I guess. Apparently she's always busy with school and being a teenager. So, hey man, listen, being a teenager was hard. You don't realize when there's like a monster in your backyard. Whatever. But that's kind of the situation. That's the setup of this episode. So while they're hanging out, Halloween night, Marshall gets the bright idea and this is kind of, again, this is what I love about the episode. It kind of brings me back to being a kid because, my background's in filmmaking. Still to this day, I'm still heavily involved in indie filmmaking and stuff like that. And when I was around this age, I loved using the camcorder to film little home videos and silly stuff. So I love that in this episode, that's kind of his bright ideas. We'll use a camcorder and attempt to kind of like shoot an America's Funniest Home Videos episode. And this and the setup for that is that the plan is to shoot this funny video by using Harley and setting up. And it's a really kind of weak prank because they're basically laying out the whole plan in front of Harley. And he is oblivious to just kind of what's happening. He is and he isn't. And I want to talk about Harley too for a second here. Does not speak the entire episode. And is just, he speaks his one line at the very end, but does not speak. And he's just like a problem child. He's a troublemaker. I kind of missed that note there in my notes. He's a Danny. He's kind of Danny, from The Shining a little bit vibes where you think he's going to do something terrible at any moment. He's, cute little kid, doesn't really talk. And mostly you just hear Simon talk about how he's like the devil, but he just looks like this sweet little kid, Yeah. And I love that had to have been done on purpose because there's just shots of him sitting, smiling, just like obviously he's doing stuff, but at a glance, if you're a parent, I guess again, parents don't know. He's just this, like you said, innocent, cute kid who wouldn't harm a fly, but in reality, he'll burn your house down. That's kind of the vibes you get, you know? Like there's that meme of that picture of that kid smiling and there's like a house burning behind him. That's what Harley is. But the prank that they have, that they want to set up to kind of make, and I don't even think it's that great of a prank. I don't think it would be that funny, and it ends up
he's kind of trying to
Marshall.
game the system here.
Yeah, it's pretty lame in reality. So they're gonna use Marshall's lizards, Godzilla and Mothra. It's a science experiment, is how he describes it. I think it's something to do with the color of the ground or the dirt inside the tank and the way they react. It's kind of just brushed off in exposition. They never really it's his science experiment. And this is what I gather was they want to force, and it's kind of forceful, they want Harley to stick one of the lizards in his mouth, and I guess his reaction would be the funny moment.
Yeah.
It's kind of ill-conceived. It's not really a great kind of prank.
I assume they were trying to get the lizard to like bite his tongue, and then that would be the funny gag to turn into America's Funniest Home Videos.
And it's a pretty kind of animal cruelty situation when you look at it. Like, just like, because even Simon's like, no, Harley, don't do that, because he would kill this poor thing. So it's just really poor kind of plan that Marshall had. The one thing I thought was really odd about one of many odd things, but this was like a really just kind of odd setup. Like, I get what they were going for, but it's just funny. And that's not even the point. It's kind of like overthinking it in reality. And I always say that even on my show, when you're kind of talking about these kids shows, you know, these family shows, they're just really just convoluted plots that are never explained. Everything's super ambiguous and like really short. It's like, here's what's going to happen. Move to the main plot. And Eerie, Indiana is notorious for that. So is like Goosebumps.
If you start to like analyze characters' decisions, you're going to go down a real rabbit hole, because most of them make absolutely no sense. And my episode might be the biggest culprit of that.
Yeah.
It's like, well, wait. Yeah, but I'll wait to talk about that. But yeah, it's all TV kid show logic.
And I will say, and you know, we didn't mention it when you kind of broke down what Eerie, Indiana is, kind of the overall plot of the show. I will say, and this is the one thing that to me always with the show stood out amongst all, like what stood out about it amongst all the other kind of horror adjacent, spooky adjacent kids TV shows. Everyone's a pretty decent actor in reality. Like Marshall and Simon, both of them, Omri Katz, he's great on the show. And in this episode, in all three episodes, like these kids can act. It's not that hokey, as crazy and ridiculous as like even this plot seems. And we haven't even got to the ridiculous part yet with this episode.
It's light years, I would say, above like Goosebumps in terms of the quality of actors. And it's also the thing about Goosebumps is it's also painfully Canadian. So like so that also adds to a little bit of the weirdness. This is much more genuine, cartoonish at times, but much more genuine performances.
And what makes it work is how eccentric the characters are in this universe. And that's what makes it work. I just wanted to, I actually wrote that down in my notes, and I should have said it when you broke down the episode. I was like, that's one thing that always stood out to me. It's just how well acted for kid actors, for child actors. Yeah, they all are. So back to the prank, the terrible prank that Marshall wanted to play on Harley. So it backfires. Harley doesn't place the lizard in his mouth because Simon kind of stops him because he was in fear of Harley killing this poor animal. So Harley tosses one of the lizards and then grabs the other lizard, places it in Marshall's pants, who doesn't know because he's looking for the other lizard. And this causes Marshall to kind of jump around like an idiot looking for the lizard. It's crawling in his crotch and his ass and down his leg. It's like a standard kind of, put the insect down the pants, lizard down, mouse.
It's a straight Looney Tunes bit.
It's a trope we've seen in so many kind of like children's shows and movies and things like that. So after this incident, the boys decide to sit Harley, because he's a menace, in front of the TV set and this is a hilarious detail. They tape a bowling ball to his leg to kind of keep him.
Again, it's a Looney Tunes bit.
Yeah.
It's like when, if you were in trouble, if you were in jail, you had that big like ball and chain around your ankle. That meant you were a prisoner. And kid logic would suggest we need to recreate this.
Oh, dude, there's a great shot where like you just see the bowling ball and all the duct tape like tied around it, like leading where they created the piece to connect to his ankle. It's so cheesy, but I love it. Mm-hmm. So they place him in front of the TV. They place Harley in front of the TV, and they put on an old mummy movie that I did not get. Did one of you guys catch the name? I did not write it in my notes.
I didn't. Great. It's something really over the top. It's like the dripping blood of the mummy's crypt or something. It's like really over the top. It's
amazing. Yeah. It's amazing. Mm-hmm. And it's funny, like on my show, we're covering all the Universal monster movies. Like we're going through each one right now. It's been a slow process, but we've been covering all about 47 official Universal monster movies. And watching this kind of reminded me of that, because I think they did a fantastic job. The movie, well, in this case, it's a TV show, but the movie within a movie aspect of this, they did a great job. Like the set itself, black and white, cobwebs everywhere. There's stone everywhere. Mm-hmm. It feels like an old, like The Ghost of the Mummy or The Mummy's Revenge, or one of the old
like the second tier Mummies movies.
Yeah, like the sequels to the old Mummy like movies with Boris Karloff, where he was only in the original, but kind of those later Mummy movies where the mummy is completely covered in toilet paper, rapping and walking around and attacking people. So fantastic job, just how accurate the depiction of it is in this episode. So they put him in front of this old mummy movie. And Marshall and Simon are kind of off bickering, and like Harley's out of their sight. And Harley, because he's a shitty kid, decides to bite the controller. He kind of inspects the TV and the camcorder and all that, and bites the controller, which causes him and the mummy inside of this movie to swap. So it's a situation where Harley's now in the movie, and the mummy is now in Marshall and Simon's house, like basically the house. He's in the real world. Yeah. He's hanging out. Yeah. Dimensions and stuff, which Eerie, Indiana loves their dimensions, which we're going to get into later on as well in another episode.
Yeah, they do.
So what ends up happening, they've got the mummy in the house now. There's trick-or-treaters ringing the doorbell, kind of annoying the shit out of them. We kind of cut back a couple times to Marshall's mom and dad, who are off in this kind of void, which I want to talk about when I'm done wrapping up the episode. It's one of my favorite things about this episode. It's kind of their subplot, their segments. They're out kind of just making out in the car because they can't get it started or whatever. And now Marshall have to deal with the mummy and Harley figuring out how to swap them back into place, because Harley's like basically destroying this set. He's destroying this mummy movie, and
he's also menacing a woman. Like he's a child who's menacing a woman. Which is
another. All right, I'll say it now, and I wrote this down in my notes as well. One of my favorite things is that this woman is screaming the entire time. Like, when Harley's in the movie, she does not stop. She's literally screaming until it ends, basically until they cut away from the mummy movie and the whole thing wraps up. It's the best. Harley like stomps on her dress, which causes it to rip off of her. She runs off. He's just like walking around chasing her, and you would think he is the embodiment of Satan. And she's just running away from him. I love that aspect of this episode.
So he is the mummy in the movie now. He's the monster.
It's almost like he's worse than the mummy, though, when you like Harley is the worst thing this woman can encounter. It's funny because she's screaming when they're watching the movie and the mummy's in the movie, but it almost gets worse when Harley enters the picture. It's so ridiculous.
And I love that. My favorite part of when he's first transferred in there is that Simon is just kind of nonplussed that his kid brother's in the movie. Like, he's so used to Harley getting in trouble that he's like, God damn it, he's in the movie now. Like, he's just not that surprised by it. He's just like, I'm gonna beat your ass when you get out of that movie.
Yeah, I feel like Simon's character's kind of like that throughout the whole show, you know, unless he's involved, which there's an episode we're covering where he changes, where he wears eyeglasses, which I almost picked that episode where he kind of, his personality changes, because I feel like Simon's kind of that way throughout. Like he brushes everything off. He gets scared of stuff, but I guess nothing kind of, it's all normal to him. Like you said, I feel like that's just a running gag with his character. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like I've noticed that a lot.
No, it is.
Yeah.
He's always just 100% on board with what Marshall is saying. And he's just along for the ride, happy-go-lucky kind of guy. But then interestingly enough, he will like solve a lot of things, right? He'll figure them out. So he's kind of, I thought this was confusing because his last name is Holmes, and you'll notice there's a lot of references to like literary characters and like horror movie characters, stuff like that, especially in the naming conventions. And his last name is Holmes, but he is much more of a Watson than he is a Holmes. But weirdly enough, that his name is his last name is Holmes in this. But yeah, he is very much a Watson-like character.
Yeah,
he's the logical, calm, kind of one.
Yeah. Speaking of names, I just want to point out Harley's middle name is Schwarzenegger. I just want to say that.
Oh, yes. I wrote that in my notes, too. I love the whole idea that Simon's family is kind of like white trash. And like that's always the impetus. That's kind of what they're implying. Simon kind of, his home life is a little not bad, but just like he spends a lot of time at our house. We like some of us either had that friend. Some of us either had that friend or were that friend when you were little, where like your friend's house was way better than your house, or your friend's house was not necessarily the coolest place to be, so they just were at your house. I always get the feeling that's kind of what Simon's character was. Is his family was like, he kind of was a latchkey kid, or maybe his like home life wasn't ideal. I don't know. So he just kind of was their like other adopted son.
Yeah, I think
and Harley was one of his feral siblings.
I mean, Harley's a feral sibling because he's basically nonverbal for like as a too old to be nonverbal. But it also comes up in my episode where the Marshall's family is telling Simon and Marshall to go to bed. And Simon's like, "Oh, my house doesn't have bedtimes, so I don't." So that's just another white trash thing where like Simon just is allowed to do whatever he wants because probably his parents aren't around like at all.
Yeah, I don't think you ever meet his parents, right?
He's like a Nelson Muntz kind of guy.
I don't remember. I don't think you ever meet his parents, right? They
they talk about his mom. They don't talk about his dad. So here's what I like. We're kind of making fun of it a little bit, but I always got the feeling he was a little bit of a Nelson Muntz in that his mom was a single mom and worked all the time. So he was kind of a latchkey kid and then had to stay at their house, which in the like late 80s, early 90s was extremely common. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Of course.
So like, I feel like that was the, I mean, still obviously like people don't leave their kids at home now. They actually like hire babysitters and go to daycare. But like when me and my brother were like 8, you know what I mean? We were home by ourselves all day long.
Same here. My sister and I, same situation. Yeah. So I just was even watching like all 3 of these episodes. I was wondering, I was like, I don't remember. And I've seen the series a couple times. I was like, you don't ever meet any of his parents. Like you don't. Mm-hmm. So it is interesting. I just was curious because you meet his sibling here. But like, who's his mom? So it's weird. And that was a trope in old 80s and 90s films and TV shows too. The parents are never home. There's always that one parent that's like a nurse or something, and she's always busy and just leaving the kids alone.
I always imagined his mom as like a waitress at like a truck stop diner, and
but they
she's
never
just
encounter
smokes.
her. Like they never bump into her in like the general store or the diner. Like that's what I always thought was so weird. It was like this character just doesn't exist. It's almost like when you really think about it, you dive deep, it's almost creepy. It's like, what's the deal with Simon's mom? Like her
Simon. I always thought there was going to be an episode that came up where we learned that Simon was actually like 100-year-old ghost that just like, haunted Eerie, Indiana or something.
He obviously has a brother, so he's got and he mentions his family. He's got something, but very interesting, just kind of trait with that character in this series that they just avoided which I'm sure was intentional. They didn't want you to ever meet his mom or his dad. But back to the episode. So we end up finding out, to kind of wrap this up and kind of what happens. We find out that The mummy is not an actual mummy, but a famous actor named Boris von Orloff, which is a reference to Boris Karloff and old Universal monster movies. Like I
Count
mentioned.
Orloff
Count
from
Orloff, Nosferatu, Salem's Lot.
Nosferatu, yeah.
And to kind of describe Boris von Orloff's situation is, so he died 50 years ago, and his spirit is sort of living in purgatory in this film, and he just has to kind of over and over again, anytime someone watches it, it's like a job. He's got to like act out the movie and this, that, and the third. So it's a constant loop for him. Anytime someone watches this movie, he's living it over and over again. And he'd love to have a vacation from having to continue to live in this mummy movie for the rest of his existence, I guess, in time. So he is dead. He is a spirit stuck in a film, which is a cool concept. And I dig that a lot. So Marshall looks through the footage on the camcorder and learns that Harley, bored out of his mind, bit down on the controller and swapped with Boris. So what they basically have to do is have Boris sit in front of the TV and at the right moment have him bite down on the controller to swap places with Harley, and do this very quickly before his parents come home.
Yeah.
So it's got to happen. It's like a Ferris Bueller. The parents are literally pulling up to the driveway, and they've got to do this at the right time. There is a great, and I think I even said this on my episode covering this up, there's a great shot that I love where they're kind of shuffling around in the middle of having Boris bite down the remote, and he's sitting in the chair where Marshall, this trick-or-treater, is ringing the doorbell. Marshall runs over to the bucket of candy, chucks it at the kids. Like, you see the candy hit them in their faces. He's like, trick or treat. And then he slams the door and then goes back to, it's hysterical. I love that shot.
The trick or treat scenes are so funny in this. There's good one which we could talk a lot more about this one, but like, you know, when the mummy, before we know it's not just an actual mummy, he's coming down the stairs or whatever, and he scares the sister because she comes down to answer the door. And my favorite gag is she doesn't realize it's a real mummy. She thinks it's just a big trick-or-treater. And she's like, what's wrong with you? You know, scaring somebody like that or whatever. And they're like, she goes, aren't you a little bit old to be trick-or-treating? And Marshall goes, he's just a big kid. And Simon goes, gland problems. she's like, oh, okay. You can just growing. Blame that. I feel like that's a kid thing you could say as a kid that just will completely answer any question. It's a glandular thing, because you don't know what that means.
And they would never do something like that today in a show like that. Like there's some stuff that happens in Eerie, Indiana that's of the time. Like some of the jokes they make are obviously for adults, and they go over. Like a joke like that, a kid would be like, gland problems. What the hell does that mean? But we know that's a disorder. And, you know, a lot of wrestlers have gland problems. You know, you guys mentioned wrestling. You know, Andre the Giant had one. Big Show had one. So that's why they're like 7'3". So it is a funny joke to kind of just sprinkle in this trick-or-treat.
Explain why he's a 6'2" child. Yeah.
Dude, all like you mentioned the trick-or-treat, all like the mask, like there's that giant clown mask, that big like ogre looking mask. All these kids are wearing like vintage early 90s Halloween mask, and it's great. All the decorations in this episode are fantastic, kind of just sprinkled throughout the living room.
Great 90s living room. The whole aesthetic of the living room is great.
It's so good. But going back to kind of to wrap up the episode. So what ends up happening is they're successful in having Boris bite down on the remote. They swap out Harley. Looks like nothing happened. Nothing changed. Marshall's parents walk in to find him sitting there just watching the Mummy movie. All is good in the world of Eerie, Indiana on Halloween night. And the episode ends, because every episode of Eerie, Indiana ends with like sort of it kind of reminds me of the Friday the 13th series, where there's an artifact and they kind of lock it up in a museum. I don't know how familiar you guys are with the Friday the 13th series.
Yeah.
So it's a similar kind of, like, Marshall's got like this museum of artifacts that I guess he keeps every episode. There's kind of like something that symbolizes something that symbolizes the MacGuffin, I guess, of the episode. And he puts it in this little kind of setup he has in his attic. It ends with the, I guess, tape and camcorder kind of being that artifact. And the episode ends with Boris finally getting his vacation and ending up in like a 60s beach movie He's just there with like two girls dancing, giving them the thumbs up, all happy, and then surfing over the end kind of credits. There's just a shot of the end, the end credits popping up on screen, and Boris is.
It's like an extended scene. Like it lingers, which makes it even better. And it's just a superimposed little mummy on a surfboard. It looks
horrible, but it's great.
It looks terrible. But it's also funny because like I think a lot of the other episodes just end, the credits are just scenes from the previous things we've already seen.
Yeah.
Whereas like this was shot specifically just as like a credit sequence. So it's just like its own thing that they have at the end, which is just fun.
It's a cool gag just to kind of go like a callback. Like that joke has a payoff where he really wants a vacation and he finally gets it. So it's a good way to kind of, I guess, go back to Boris's plot or his subplot that's just mentioned in one line. Okay, he finally got it. And the visual of a guy decked out in a full mummy outfit, giving the thumbs up and riding a surfboard is ridiculous.
With sunglasses on, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. And it works so well. It works for the world that is like Eerie, Indiana. But yeah, that's basically the episode. Scariest home videos. The one thing I want to talk about, and I feel like when most people watch this episode, they don't talk about it too much, and it's something I just love. I mentioned it earlier, the parents subplot. I love that we even get, and most children's TV shows, when they focus on a holiday, whether it's Halloween, Christmas, whatever, Thanksgiving, usually the sole focus is the story plot involving the children. We're following them. I love that we're seeing what Halloween night is like for Marshall's parents, even though it's kind of like an annoying, tedious thing they have to deal with having to go kind of like start the car and get it running, and his mom has to go pick up the dad. And then it turns into kind of this like weird romantic evening for the parents. And I just love the visual of them sitting in the car. And there's obviously a gag with the dad and the trick-or-treaters and egging and shaving cream and all that sprinkled throughout to kind of make it fit the Halloween theme. And they're like in this weird void. They reference the fog at one point, which is hysterical because the amount of fog in this episode, every scene has that ground level fog behind, on the floor, everything. And it's fantastic. But their segment, I've always just kind of loved, like they're being all romantic. They're trying to get it on in the car, obviously. They're kind of reminiscing about something that happened to them in their past. I love it, dude. I love just kind of what Halloween like is for his parents, like what they're doing. And it still kind of feels, even though they're not wearing costumes in that, it still kind of feels like, we're that age now, what it would be like to still have to deal with stupid, annoying adult stuff. On Halloween when you're supposed to be watching horror movies, eating candy. It's like this threw a monkey wrench in the whole night. And I think it's the most realistic thing about this episode, which, you deal with it now, having kids, being an adult, work, things like, even though we love this holiday, something as stupid as like getting a flat tire or you leaving your lights on, your battery dies in your car could ruin the evening, and you have to like drop it and be an adult. But still kind of keep that Halloween, aesthetic and that vibe throughout their kind of little, like they made the best of a shitty situation. I love that. Yeah. I love just that portion of it. And I love the rest of it as well. I think just kind of the whole setup is very Eerie, Indiana, with the mummy and the boys having to swap out, the mummy with Boris, with Harley, who's in the TV. And just overall, man, it's a great Halloween special that, in all honesty, we hear about the Haunted Mask. We hear about, other Halloween specials. This one usually isn't brought up, but I think that goes back to us, like what we said earlier, Eerie, Indiana not being on people's radar as much as it should be.
Yeah. Right. Agreed. And I love the fact that although I didn't watch, I could have, I don't remember. I would have been, 6-7 years old. But this actually did premiere on October 20th, 1991. Yeah. So this was right in the heart of spooky season, which again, I don't know why that matters to me, but I love that it premiered in October as well. But
dude, I always point that out too. Like when stuff was released, like basically when a Halloween special was released, you always want it to be either like the week before, the weekend of, or the week of Halloween is always like ideal for these type of episodes.
Yeah.
Yep.
It is interesting, though, that this episode is almost like an anti-Halloween special, because most of the other ones we think of, like the ones we did previously on the previous Showdown Louie was on, it's always about the kids going out to trick-or-treat. Like Pete and Pete are out trick-or-treating. Doug is out trick-or-treating. Rocco was out trick-or-treating. This one, they have to stay home.
Their night gets ruined, but it ends up being a totally different type of adventure.
Yeah. So they can, the only bits of Halloween they see is the trick-or-treaters coming to them. So it's an interesting, little twist for something that like didn't happen enough to begin with anyway.
Yeah, it's to me, it's the perfect Halloween kind of in reality. Like, I would love for something like this to happen to me. If a mummy from a movie is like, if Boris Karloff came out of Frankenstein and hung out with me on Halloween night, that'd be the most Halloween thing of all time. So that'd be amazing.
Or you could get a better one, and you could get Kelly Hu from The Mummy from 1999, and she can come hang out with you. That's much better.
There you go. Or Rachel Weisz. That'd be even better.
She wasn't a mummy, Louie.
Oh, you're right.
She's just an adventurer.
She was still in The Mummy, so,
Yeah. You can't just say because somebody's in The Mummy, she gets to come in.
Hey, man.
Those aren't the rules. Those aren't the rules of this exercise.
My bad.
Yeah. All right. That was America's Scariest Home Videos. I'll jump into mine here, which obviously same season. We were only talking about one season here, so this is season 1. I'm going with episode 14 called Mr. Chaney, another very much Universal Monsters inspired episode, so much so that one of the characters, which, when you're a little kid, maybe don't make this reference, don't make this connection, but as an adult, the guy who happened to be called Mr. Chaney might, and you're talking about wolves, he might be the wolf. That might be a dead giveaway. But I will throw out, similar cast of characters here, but with a couple of people. We do get Jason Marsden in this one, who is a reoccurring character. I want to say he's on at least 3 or 4 episodes as Dash or Dash X, who's like this weird, really strange character. I'll talk about it a little bit, but he's a strange character that you kind of learn his origin story as you go on. But he's kind of this misanthrope, orphan child that just like steals from the store. They have this little like general store / diner / like soda shop almost in town that's owned or at least run by John Astin's character. So he's in this one and he's a repeating character as well. Radford, which most people would know him, especially genre fans, as Gomez Addams from the original TV run from the 60s, mid 60s of the Addams Family. He's fantastic. We also get Stephen Root, who plays the titular Mr. Chaney in this, which he's a fantastic character actor. And most of you probably at this point, more people know him from basketball, or not basketball.
No,
dodgeball. Sorry.
And even then, I don't know that people know him. I think that most people at this point would know him from Barry on HBO.
Yeah. Oh, yes. That's a newer show for sure. Yes.
He's one of those like that guy that like you just know him when you see his face. He's like a character actor that's been in so many different movies and TV shows.
Yeah. He's Funches from Barry. So if you've watched Barry with Bill Hader, he's Funches, which is a fantastic character. I grew up absolutely love it, like, adolescent years being obsessed with the movie Office Space. Yeah. Dan in our Patreon Discord here said Office Space Arsonist. Yes. I think Milton was his name. He's the guy who's stapler. You tell my stapler, I'm going to burn the office down. But he's also Gordon, who's kind of the nerdier guy that goes crazy at the end in Dodgeball. He did, he was Bill, the voice of Bill in King of the Hill too. So obviously his voice, but most people would know him from Bill. He also did a bunch of voices in King of the Hill, but super recognizable. And then the one last character I will say is probably worth mentioning is the mayor, which let me find his name here real quick. It is his name is just the mayor, by the way, but Gregory Itzin, who showed up a lot as a dad, usually a mean dad, or a politician, or a businessman, or something like that. He was actually, this is what I remember his face from. He was in Airplane. He was one of the like religious zealot weirdos in the airport in Airplane, but he's just a recognizable face that always played an older, not nice guy. Not nice adult number 4. Like that was his like, you know, prominent credit. But in any case, those are kind of the main folks, and then there's one other person we'll talk about here in a second. So I can't help but refer to him as Gomez Adams, but we start out in his main, you know, his store there, and we start to learn about this local tradition of in Eerie, Indiana, of the Harvest King. So Harvest King, Harvest Queen, like this, not an uncommon thing in any kind of agricultural town. But we also start to hear about this thing called the Eerie Wolf. And every 13 years, so it's not an annual thing. It's every 13 years they name a Harvest King, and there's this whole harvest ritual where that year's Harvest King has to go, you know, up the mountain, up like Wolf Mountain or something is called. And if you see the Eerie Wolf, you ensure good luck and good harvests for the town of Eerie for the next 13 years. So this is kind of a big deal around the town. You start to realize pretty quickly that whoever becomes the Harvest King, going back decades and decades and decades, those kids are never seen again. And there's an ongoing joke that's pretty funny, and they do bring it back around, that they always end up going to Spain. So like you win a trip, or they end up, so they keep saying like, oh, he's in Spain, he went to Spain, which essentially means, you know, you're fucking dead, right? You go, oh, he's in Spain. You quickly get introduced to, and we don't know his name at this point. I don't think we know his name until the Order of the Corn episode, which is a great one. I rewatched that one too. The Dash X, Jason Marsden's character, but he just comes in and he's stealing stuff from the store, and Gomez Adams chases him out. So we get introduced to him in that context. This is actually, and I just read this book last year or 2 years ago, and then I watched the movie that came out this year, which is Dark Harvest. Did you guys watch Dark Harvest?
Yeah, it was fun. That was good. Yeah,
it was a pretty good movie. Fun, quick read book, like nothing groundbreaking, but it was a really fun, quick read. I think I read the thing when I was on vacation, like a day. Fun book. This is an alarmingly close plot to Dark Harvest.
Yeah, sure.
Except for in Dark Harvest, instead of having to go meet the Eerie Wolf, you have to go, you know, kill this pumpkin-headed creature. But anyway, I won't spoil it, but it is essentially the same plot.
I mean, it's also the same plot as the short story from Shirley Jackson. It's just called The Lottery. So it's somebody's elected to be killed in service of the town.
Yes, I could not place who wrote that short story. I was like, short story about corn. Like I to Google it real quick before and ran out of time. But yeah, Shirley Jackson.
I feel like most people around our age, we all read that in elementary school for some reason. I don't know if I'm alone. I just remember being like 9 years old and reading that story and being like, wow, this is a pretty dark story. And I'm like 9 or 10. I was like, all right, okay. I feel like a lot of movies and plots have just taken that story. I don't know if it's in the public domain, but have just taken that story and just kind of restructured it and kind of added elements to it to kind of make it their own. So it's a really influential. And as soon as I saw this episode, and as soon as you mentioned, I remembered. I was like, yeah, this is like The Lottery. This is kind of like Eerie, Indiana version of The Lottery.
Right.
Between Shirley Jackson and like Richard Matheson, Shirley Jackson and Richard Matheson, every like horror story and movie is somehow influenced by those two. I swear, over the course of the last half a century plus at this point. But in any case, they literally call it a lottery. And the whole lottery winner has to be the Harvest King. So you enter this lottery. It's something you do willingly. You quickly realize that the powers that be in town, i.e. the mayor and Mr. Chaney and the guy who owns the only business in town, apparently, which is Gomez Adams, they, are kind of keeping this quote unquote tradition alive. And they are really rigging it to figure out who it's going to be because they want a kid that won't be missed, essentially, because they don't want whatever is happening, which we don't know yet. Whatever's happening, they don't want it to be discovered. So they decide that the gray haired kid, who's Dash, they're going to kind of put him up as the winner. That's their plan. However, he's in the shop, overhears them saying this, switches his name out to Marshall. And at this point, we don't really know why they don't like each other, but it has been established in a previous episode that there's like a bit of friction between the two of them. In any case, he's hiding in the shop listening. And this was the reference you had mentioned, Louie, earlier, is after they figure out, they're like, all right, let's get out of here. They're showing The Howling on cable tonight. They're all like, ooh, let's get home. We got to show The Howling. So a lot of, I won't even call it foreshadowing. It's on the nose reference to exactly what's going to happen later in the movie.
Yeah. This scene's also great because Stephen Root is just eating the biggest plate of ribs you've ever fucking seen. And like nobody else is eating. So there's obviously something about his character.
Yeah. So this is interesting because the next day in front of the whole town, which apparently is only, 25 people, but they're all in the shop and they all have everything decorated out. They're going to announce every 13 years, this is a big deal. They're going to announce the winner of the lottery and who's going to be the Harvest King for that year. Now the mayor pulls up the card, or no, it's Gomez Adams. He pulls up the card, looking at it, and he knows what he's going to say, which is the gray-haired kid. They literally just wrote gray-haired kid because they don't know his name. Mm-hmm. And he looks at the card and it's Marshall Teller. And instead of just lying and saying the gray-haired kid like we all expect, he says to Chaney, like, wait, what's going on? I thought we were doing the gray-haired kid. And he's like, does it really matter? Just read what's on the card. And it's like, you guys are already lying. What's it matter what's on the card? You just swap the card. They show him palm the card.
Right. It goes back to what I said before. It's like, this makes no sense, but like you even said it. You were like, you got a kind of suspension of disbelief. It's almost like you said, like Sean Astin. He could have easily just been like, that's who we picked. He didn't even fight. I love how there's a giant black mark crossing out the kid's name, and they still don't question. Someone obviously got to this card.
The card told us.
Yes. Yeah. It's not like they grabbed a new card, even wrote another name down, and no, they literally the gray-haired kid. He crossed it out and put down Marshall's name. It's so silly.
Threw him for a fucking loop.
He was thrown off completely. He was like, what the hell am I going to do now? He looks at them like so confused. It's amazing.
Did they think it was just something in the town guiding them?
Yeah.
Like,
I think that they thought maybe the mayor might have done it. And then but didn't tell them. That's the only, we're really explaining away a dumb plot hole is what we're doing here. But it is funny. He's just like, just say it. Who cares? And you're getting this idea that Mr. Chaney, he's very eager to keep this going and just make it go off without a hitch. He's really pushing things forward with this whole tradition. Now everyone's interested in Marshall now, so he's not really putting up too much of an argument. They show up at his house with a cow just to give him a cow, and the whole town comes and gives him flowers, and there's like cute girls and they give him a crown. Yeah,
I do love how women young teenage girls just are all about you now once you become the Harvest King.
The women's hockey team shows up and
it's like Spanish fly for the teenagers of Eerie, Indiana. It's so ridiculous, but I do love it. It's so silly.
So for this reason, Marshall's down. Like he's like, okay, fine. This isn't that bad, right? Meanwhile, the gray-haired kid is like looking through old newspapers, so you're going to get the idea he's trying to get to the bottom of things. But Now Marshall has to go to Wolf Mountain with Mr. Chaney to see the Eerie Wolf. So there's a lot of talk about tradition. Seems like Mr. Chaney is just like making shit up as he goes and has been pushing this thing the whole time. Like I said, he is on a walkie-talkie with Simon. And you know, for our younger listeners, walkie-talkies are the cell phones for kids before 2010. So like the idea of cell phones for kids was such a foreign concept that you had to have walkie-talkies. Meanwhile, walkie-talkies you had access to as a kid only went like 30 feet. Like if somebody was beyond 30 feet from you, you were not talking to him on the walkie-talkie, on your Kmart brand walkie-talkie. But this is, you know, he's on top of a mountain and he's talking to Simon. We all know at this point, Mr. Chaney is the Eerie Wolf. He's a werewolf. And we see what is a really legit transformation for a lowish, you know, budget kids show, which I know Joe Dante was part of the production for this. And he's involved with the show. I think he's a writer.
He directed The
Howling.
Howling.
Like that. And he directed The Howling, right?
Yeah.
He's listed as a creative consultant on all the episodes.
Yeah. But man, Joe Dante, I can only assume was responsible for, and I was, by the time we got to this episode, my younger daughter was up too. They're 8 and 9, and she was like, what? Like she was like, I don't want to say she was scared, but she was kind of like, whoa, this is pretty intense. Like this transformation.
Mm-hmm.
It's a gnarly looking werewolf. Like they did a fantastic job just with the
like
effects.
the mouths move and everything.
Like the cross dissolve between human to werewolf's kind of hokey, but again, 1991. But once he's full blown wolf, very almost. I wouldn't say as I guess like Michael Jackson Thriller werewolf, kind of like dark features, like black hair. It's almost scarier than that one, I would say. Like for a kid's show, you know, if you're 9 or 8 or 7, I think you'd be a little freaked out by this. I just kind of the look of this werewolf. So
it reminded me, the face and the head reminded me of Dog Soldiers.
Yes.
Just without the super long limbs. You know, it's not the big, long, tall limbs, but the face was very Dog Soldiers.
Yeah, it's like a combination of the Michael Jackson Thriller wolf and Dog Soldiers. You're right. Like kind of if you took both of them and combined them, that's kind of what this would be. And one thing about the transformation that I do love is there's a shot you see of the shirt ripping and then the hair emerging underneath it. That was great. Like it's a solid. We're not talking American Werewolf in London levels, but it's pretty solid for a kids TV show. I was like, wow, this is. I forgot how impressive it was.
I've seen adult feature films about werewolves that have way worse transformations than this. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah. The gray hair kid. This was the reference, Steve, you mentioned earlier. The gray-haired kid pops in right at this moment and just clubs the werewolf in the back of the head with a log and saves the day. And Marshall goes, "It's you," and he goes, "It ain't the log lady."
Yeah,
which is great line.
Great. Yeah, great Twin Peaks reference.
It's a great line. It goes over every single child's head. But
you
know,
even in 91, what 10-year-old knew what? I doubt any kids were watching Twin Peaks.
No,
and this was like not watching it.
I think Twin Peaks was over at this point too in 91. I think it had already ended. The 2 seasons were done. So interesting just to reference that show.
Dude, I just remember Twin Peaks. I didn't watch it, but I do remember like my parents, my aunts, my uncles all being like it was such a huge part of the zeitgeist for like those 2 years. So like I feel like I would have known what it was, but there's no way I would have got the log lady reference. No. It was definitely for the adults. But Marshall did get scratched by the werewolf during that period. That comes back around. They take the werewolf back to Marshall's house. And the gray hair kid, Dash, is like really into kind of cashing in on this. He's like, let's call the Inquirer, you know, like we'll make some money. Meanwhile, Marshall and Simon are like, no, we got to figure this out because I got scratched and I'm worried I'm going to turn into a werewolf. Meanwhile, the mayor and Gomez are celebrating their ritualistic murder of a child with some champagne. And the kids show up with a camcorder, and basically kind of put them on the spot. And they're like going to blackmail them like, hey, you know what's going on here. We're going to blow the whistle. Tell us what happened. You know, I got scratched, whatever. And things get weirdly political here, which just happens in this show, where the mayor explains that the U.S. has a long history of looking the other way. Like he mentions Watergate and Iran-Contra, and it gets really intense.
They even make mention of the Warren Commission at one point, which was, you know, like looking into JFK's assassination.
Yeah.
What an odd reference for a kid's show when you think about it. Just, what weird things to say.
Yeah. The werewolf at this point, Simon stayed back at Marshall's house with the werewolf. And it breaks out. It's stalking Simon. And this was a great, my 8-year-old is so freaking funny. We were sitting there watching this and it's stalking up behind Simon. And you could tell, you know, when you're a little kid and something's like a little creeping you out, you say a joke to kind of cut the tension.
Yeah.
My 8-year-old had me cracking up because the werewolf is coming up behind Simon. And my daughter Maggie goes, well, Spain time.
That's amazing.
I was like, what a gag.
That's funny.
Yeah, so I was like, she's, you know, everyone thinks their kid's hilarious, but so Marshall's sister Cindy, going back to what you guys said, where it's like Cindy will just talk herself out of anything. She comes downstairs, sees the werewolf smashes through the window, and then Cindy goes, that was the biggest raccoon I've ever seen.
It's also wearing human clothes.
It's 6 foot tall wearing human clothes, Cindy. I just Cindy's like to imagine
Cindy's a little dumb, man. I don't know what's going on with her.
Cindy's coming down. Cindy's in a K-hole. You know, she's just coming down from a long weekend.
That's why she was coming down.
Yeah,
that's why she was coming down to have the banana. She needed to up her potassium, just like reset all her vitamins and such.
She's all coked up in her bedroom. She's all coked up in her bedroom, running down from all the studying she has to do and seeing confusing werewolves with raccoons.
She's been doing some Saved by the Bell levels of speed to get all her studying done. So she's been on biker crank all weekend. So Gomez shows up and partners with the kids. He's got all his hunting gear and he's got a silver bullet. He's like, hey, we're gonna take this thing down. Again, fog is great in this one. We get a lot of great fog up on the mountain, the low-lying fog. Just as Gomez is about to shoot, they spot the werewolf, just about to shoot him. Chaney turns back. He starts like cycling back and forth as the full moon gets covered up by the clouds. And he grabs Marshall and has got Marshall like picked up by the collar type of thing. This is very reminiscent. And I know, Louie, you probably know this movie well, but we talked about it. I think it was last week. This was very similar to that scene near the end of Rawhead Rex, where they're worried they're going to hit whatever's Hooch or whatever. What's the preacher's name? I forget.
Coot.
The Renfield, like Rawhead Rex's Renfield, like his little lackey. That guy, right? Is that who you're talking about?
Oh, that was Deacon. Yeah, that was Deacon or whatever. But this is Reverend Coot.
Yes.
And they're like, we might hit the old man, you know. Anyway, so this is that exact scene. He accidentally shoots the wolf in the foot, which turns him back into Mr. Chaney. So the silver bullet works, but of course doesn't kill him, just shoots him in the foot. And they play it as like almost a hot foot gag. He's like, ow, 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 you know, like it's so everything is good. Now they're back in the, you know, shop / diner / general store. And they make Marshall, like Gomez makes Marshall this like weird ritualistic black magic milkshake with like blood and all kind of stuff in it to fix his, you know, so he doesn't turn into a werewolf. And then the next night, Marshall, because it didn't quite work, he just barely got scratched, but he does grow giant mutton chops, which is the gag. So he's tiny, like he's like 2% werewolf. He just grows tiny mutton chops, and then they make a puberty joke, and then that's the end. That's the end of the episode.
Yeah, they really race to the end on this episode because
a lot of them do. A lot of them, the last 10 minutes, everything's tied up real quick.
Yeah,
and, you know,
because I mean, a lot of what you just explained was actually Marshall saying it in voiceover. So like, it's just like we rewrote too much episode. Let's voice over a lot of this and just get to the end. They're like, yeah, he's fine, and he got shot, and then he'll never be the werewolf again. And now I drink the milkshake, and then also, but I get sideburns, and the episode's over. Hey, everybody, go home, have a good time, drive safe.
Yeah,
I do like that they have the scene of Gomez Adams like in his, doing weird occult rituals to make the milkshake, where he's like, oh, this is some good fresh chicken blood I have, and like an eye of newt. He doesn't say that, but it's stuff like that. So
I think it's the eye of Vlad the Impaler or something like that. I think is what he says.
Yeah.
Some crazy.
It's a bunch of wild shit.
Come by or something like that. He says. I was like,
Yeah.
What? So that scene
There
is
would
great.
only be 2, you assume.
Yes, I love how he like takes it and puts it in the milkshake machine and blends it. That's like the best. And it's like disgusting and red. Do we even ever see Marshall take a sip? No, it just cuts, right?
No.
Yeah. So
Yeah, it just cuts because it's also like it's a real Dr. Dreadful fucking concoction, because it's also got like the dry ice smoking coming out from underneath the whipped cream.
But he does put whipped cream and a cherry on it,
Yeah.
so it makes it slightly appetizing.
Yep.
it probably was like something delicious, and it's probably like a strawberry milkshake in reality, and they just put some dry ice.
I'm not gonna lie, it looked good, and like I love like blood sauce. Like I would drink a blood milkshake.
Oh God!
No, I
You're on
probably
your
wouldn't. That's
own there,
disgusting.
buddy.
All right, that was the episode Mr. Chaney, which was my choice. So 2 down, 1 to go. Steve, let's see if you can bring it home. I submit that you cannot.
I believe that I can because
All right,
I
fine.
have a good episode.
All right, fine.
My episode doesn't wrap up on voiceover.
Shut up. I knew you were planting this. Shut up.
So my episode is The Lost Hour, and it is the 10th episode in the series. This one is a little bit of a departure in that it doesn't have monsters per se, but it does feel a little bit of a Langoliers ripoff. It does come before the Langoliers TV show, though, but it's after the short story was published by Stephen King. So it's in that sweet spot. They took advantage of a book before it got transformed into a TV show.
Don't nobody know about books.
Yeah.
Hurry up.
Yeah.
Can't. Put it in the can.
Go. Nobody knows this. But yeah, we get we start the episode with Marshall and Simon. They're up late watching movies, and they're all ready for daylight savings time. And they're ready to set their watches back, and then they're going to get another hour of movies and staying up and eating junk food. That's what every kid wants.
Great, just classic sleepover vibes. I love I'm a sucker for the nostalgia and just the idea. I just remember this so vividly, like me, my brother, my cousin, like one of our friends, just all literally sick from eating Twizzlers and just watching like our 5th movie.
Yeah.
It's the best.
I
mean, drank so much Pepsi, like our eyes are vibrating.
Yeah, you just feel weird, and so you sleep it off.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I mean, it's only because the show came before it, but like you're so close to having that, that Nintendo 64 setup and just playing fucking wrestling games all night before you pass out from Cheeto and soda overload.
Yeah, that's one thing about this show I found interesting. No like product placement for Nintendo or anything like that. Like you don't really see like any like a Nintendo, because 91 the first Nintendo was out, the entertainment system, so you never really see that from what I remember. So yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. No video games. What 91? Who didn't want to play Duck Hunt? So
that's the thing. The original NES, it was kind of weak on multiplayer gaming. Like it was a lot of taking turns, but it wasn't. It wasn't that.
Yeah. Otherwise, what are you gonna play that fucking Olympic thing with the mat you stomping on? Like that's come on. Nobody wanted that.
Nobody wants that.
We had one like volleyball game that we could use. We did have one of those 4-player like adapter things,
Oh yeah.
That we bought at Rogers Flea Market used. And we had one game that it worked for, which was we had 2. We had one basketball game that sucked, and then we had a beach volleyball game that was actually sick. That was the only games we had that worked that 4 players could play at one time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the only 2-player one I remember was like the Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game one.
Yeah,
you could do
you're
2
right.
players at the same time on that one. Yeah.
Yeah,
You
because
could do
even
Battletoads.
Yeah.
We play Battletoads. You could do co-op.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'd have to take turns. Like Super Mario Brothers, you would have to like, you go when I die, it's your turn. I remember that being really annoying and like fighting. There was multiple people. You'd have to fight over who's next. So it wasn't until I think like fighting games like Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, where you really were like, it was all about going up against someone and battling them and stuff like that. So interesting.
Then you could keep the order straight.
Yeah, exactly. It's like if I whipped your ass, until I get beat, I'm going to continue down the line. So,
dude, I milked that rule for a long time because I was the oldest. I was like one of the old. I'm like, so I would just keep going because I just whip ass, and I'm be like, it's 2 hours later. I've not given up the controller, but I'm really milking. Hey, when you guys beat me, I'll give up the controller.
Yeah,
just a
get good.
Shitty older brother thing to do.
Get good. That's all you got to do.
Get good. Be better.
Yeah,
be better.
But. Yeah, unfortunately, Marshall and Simon's little sleepover gets interrupted by the Marshall's parents. They come in to let Marshall and Simon know it's time to go to bed, and Marshall is unaware that Indiana does not abide by the rules of daylight savings time. So, and he automatically feels like he's getting ripped off. He's getting ripped off an hour, and he is thrown into a rebellious tizzy. Simon, on the other hand, I've already mentioned, he does not care about bedtimes. He'll just go to bed if he's being told. And in this scene, I think he's willing to go to bed because, the previously aforementioned babe of a mom gives him a little kiss, and he gives an extra smile about it. And he's like, hell yeah.
Yeah. He's always kind of like creepily ogling the mom.
Yeah.
Like, and she treats it as like, oh, he doesn't have parent figures, but we all kind of are like, Simon is like, yeah.
I do want to point out too how upset Marshall is about this hour that he's losing. Like he is so pissed off.
He's fired up.
Yeah. Like I think when I was a kid, I never once was upset about like losing an hour like this much. I was like, that's my hour that you're taking. Oh, like what?
It's a wild hill to die on. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really just odd choice. Like the dialogue that's written, he's like, how would you take like time away from my life? And it's true when you think about it.
But it's a real esoteric thing, like a real conceptual thing for a child to like die on that hill.
Yeah, it's like, dude, you're 12. Relax. Like, come on, dude.
You've never had it ripped away from you like that. You never had to move to Indiana or Arizona, where they don't abide by those rules. He was already set up for 12 years of his life. He was used to doing daylight savings time, and then have it snatched away by the arbitrary rules of Indiana. That's really,
if you think about it, Indiana and Arizona, this might be the one thing that they actually are ahead of the curve on is daylight savings time is stupid.
It is. Well, I agree, but
let's not give Indiana too much credence because they adopted it in 2006.
Yeah, but I'm just saying.
So they actually went backwards in time.
When you are so ass backwards Mike Pence about everything else, this is actually like, this is progressive for Indiana.
Sure, but they went backwards by adopting it in 2006. So they
did they go back and do it?
Yes,
okay,
that's what I was saying. They didn't have it,
and
then they went back.
So stupid. So
because
dumb.
They also invented the Klan and Mike Pence.
All right.
Yeah. Okay, Indiana. I don't know how much time you're way over on the East Coast. I have driven through. I used to live in Wisconsin and moved from Pittsburgh to Wisconsin, have family here, and we drive back regularly. And I've driven through the length of Indiana in every direction. It is the worst state there is.
Wow.
People talk shit on Ohio and like Kansas as having nothing. Indiana is nothing and nowhere.
I went to Ohio the first time last year. I've never been so bored in my life. I was there for 5 days.
Ohio is like Willy Wonka's factory.
Really?
Dude,
wow.
Ohio is Willy Wonka's factory compared to Indiana. Yeah. There's one city. It's Indianapolis. It's fine. It's a tiny little city. And the rest of the state is just a white piece of paper. Like there's nothing there. Nobody's there. You like go past like a highway and they're like, Larry Bird once drove on this road. And then that's the only thing you see.
You go through.
Yeah. Racism was invented here. You know, right. Like that. You see these signs occasionally.
You go through Gary, Indiana, and you go, oh, hey, Michael Jackson was born here. But then also it is one of the smelliest towns you'll ever drive through because it's all just oil industrial and it stinks. Yeah. It smells terrible.
And really, Gary is just southern Chicago. Like it is just a suburb, a southern suburb of Chicago. Like the rest of the state is just blank white. Anyway, fuck Indiana, come at me.
Indiana does suck, but I will say Nebraska's worse. Nebraska.
See, I've never driven through Nebraska.
I've driven through Nebraska to try to get to Colorado, and it just like it's worse. It's just worse. That's all it is. Like it's not more offensive than Indiana, I don't think, because like like we said, Indiana invented racism and Nebraska invented the Reuben. So like points Nebraska, but it's just more boring. That's all.
Man.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. Indiana,
everyone's coming after you guys, and myself included now, just all of these places.
Not Nebraska. No, Nebraska invented the Reuben. I like that about them.
Yeah, you're right.
I like them. They're just
Indiana. At least Indiana has a city, which is Indianapolis.
Yeah.
Nebraska doesn't even have a city. Like what, Lincoln?
Yeah.
Like there's
right. When their one city is also their capital. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
What are you doing? It's Pennsylvania. Our capital isn't even like our third biggest city or some shit. Like we got way bigger cities than Harrisburg.
Yeah. You got Pennsylvania's a big state, man. There's a lot going on over there. It's like New York. Yeah. It's like there's just you got it all over here, just like you guys.
Yeah, exactly. What's your capital's what? Albany?
Yeah, Albany.
Who the fuck thinks about that? Nobody thinks about that.
8 hours from there. I never venture down to Albany that often. So
yeah, it's New York City, it's Buffalo, and then it's other things that aren't Albany before you think about the state capital.
Exactly.
And this has been State Talk, guys. Appreciate you tuning in to State Talk.
That's running down the states. And why everything in the Midwest is worse.
Oh man.
But yeah, back to the episode. We have Marshall throwing his fit, and he says, you know what? Fuck this. Fuck the man. I'm going to set my clock back anyways. Watch me not. And then he does.
Yeah.
And then this throws him into the Langoliers situation. Much like in the Langoliers, where a plane just flies through the aurora and finds itself in a dead zone of no people. Marshall finds himself in an empty Eerie, Indiana. Everybody's gone. Simon's gone. His parents are gone. But we get cuts to the proper time to show that they still exist. So he is just flung himself into another damn dimension.
Yes, which honestly, I can remember watching this one as a kid. And this was one of the first things I ever watched as a kid that introduced me to the concept of time travel. Like now that's obviously tons of movies based on this and books and whatever. But I remember this was one of maybe the first time travel thing I watched and being pretty confused.
Yeah.
And if they wouldn't have showed the back and forth between now time and that time, I would have been even more confused.
Yeah.
So like I do remember they did a pretty good job of explaining it to, an 8-year-old or however old I was at the time. But yeah. Just especially as like now my kids had no issue, but they're much more media savvy than me. As like an 8-year-old like redneck kid, I was like, wait, what happened? There are two different times. Wait, 2 times? There's only one time. I was
2 times.
They know 2 times.
An entire generation basically learned about time travel because of the Back to the Future movies. I feel it's just kind of where we all time travel. I think that's probably my earliest memory of time travel, and like hearing like you've disrupted the space-time continuum, which they use in this episode, I'm pretty sure. So it's interesting how I'm sure like those words, like using that came from like something like Back to the Future, which was like but
in Back to the Future, I remember thinking we are here. Yeah. Now we've gone back.
Yeah.
But the idea that both can exist simultaneously is never really it's not that it's not broached, but in Back to the Future, as the audience, we are with Marty in whatever time he's in. In this one, the idea that people can exist simultaneously in two different times.
Two different
I remember
dimensions.
watching this as a kid going, the fuck? Like, question mark? Yeah.
I think you would have, there may be something in either the original Star Trek or the Next Generation that touches this, but you would have had to have like, you know, been watching that as a kid. But I just
see,
can't,
that was more like, I was like 10 or 12 before like I started watching Next Generation with my grandpa, with my pap. That was the, before that, I think there was an Eek the Cat episode that dealt like broadly with time travel. That's the only other thing.
I think that's just a trope of all of these kind of time travel, other dimensions running at the same time, because they always have some sort of characters or group that's there to kind of clean up anyone that can mess up the like space time, you know, like the timeline of whatever the main character, like the protagonist of the story is like, because even like Loki, the new show, even though I kind of watched some of it, I wasn't a big fan. I'm not a huge Marvel guy, but like that even had like, that's like that whole plot is about a group of people that fix timelines.
Yeah.
So
it's
this
a bunch
was
of time
ahead
cops.
of its time. Yeah. This is kind of ahead of its time with that concept and like the garbage men. You know,
Star Trek has a committee of time. Yeah. You know, like cops that just like keep things in order. But yeah,
I will admit I'm not a Star Trek guy, so that's over my head there.
That's fine. I'm just saying, yeah, you're right. There is commonly some sort of time cop or some sort of order that's maintained by an alternate entity. And in this
which
case,
is interesting because Back to the Future doesn't have that, right? I don't think. Yeah, no. They're just freewheeling in that one, but yeah.
But yeah, in this case, we're introduced to these garbage men, and these are the first people that Marshall sees after he comes out of his house, and he, you know, wearing his sick to share zone shirt, and he comes up.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say his shirt is so sick. It is the share zone for sure.
It's pre to share zone. It fucking rules. I actually found it online. You can
really?
Yeah,
I couldn't tell what it said on it.
Yeah, it's so the shirt it says Brooklyn, and it has a big giant
on it.
Yeah, has a big giant skull, and the city is on fire behind the skull.
Yeah,
and then in the smaller text says, "Where the weak are killed and eaten." So
hell yeah.
Honestly, it looks like a New York hardcore, like old school New York hardcore band shirt. That's what it looks like. Funny enough, he's wearing it in 2 of these episodes.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing he goes. Yeah, he's wearing it, I think, in both of your episodes. He's not wearing it in mine, if I remember correctly.
I don't remember it in Brian's.
I'm pretty sure he's wearing it at. I think he's wearing it at one point and then not wearing it. Mm-hmm. So it comes back, which I thought you guys did that on purpose. I noticed he wore it in 2 episodes.
I didn't even notice he wore it in mine.
I'm glad you guys pointed that out because I wrote that down in my notes that shirt is sick as hell. And it just reminds me of like an old New York hardcore band shirt. But he's wearing it, I'm pretty sure, in the beginning of Brian's episode. I think maybe he changed. And in my episode, he's not wearing it at all. So I'm pretty sure the shirt has made multiple appearances. So that's cool.
Well, it's a sick shirt, so why wouldn't they reuse it? But yeah, you can.
Now I need to find it.
just like Google 90s Brooklyn and then include like the where the weak are killed and eaten. Like include that in it, and like you'll find it. But I found it at a shop, and it's like, you know, like $20. It's fucking fucking rules.
Gonna have to get that. Gonna have to snag myself one of those.
Yeah. But he comes up on these garbage men. They're just, you know, throwing shit away, but the sound design cuts to this, you know, weird, you know, ominous, you know, noise to the sound design as they're throwing things in the garbage truck. And he tries to approach them. They're wearing sunglasses, which is unusual for garbage men. They're not usually known for wearing their aviators out. But, you know, Marshall's...
not typical garbage men attire.
Not typical, but, you know, Marshall starts
giving... garbage men in black.
Garbage men in black. That's what you're supposed to think, really. I mean...
Yeah.
But yeah, Marshall tries to get their attention, and they just, you know, soundlessly stare him down, and then... you know, approach him as if they're going to do something to him, but he doesn't know what they're going to do to him. And he just gets bad vibes, man. It's all it is. Just bad vibes. And so he takes off running because he doesn't want to end up in the garbage truck. And then he gets almost run over by the milkman, which is just this old man who comes out of nowhere. And he's apparently a 105-year-old milkman.
Yeah.
This is the actor who plays this guy. He's done a lot of like bit parts. He's just an actor in a lot of stuff, does a lot of bit parts. His name's Eric Christmas, but you'll recognize him
What a name.
Yeah.
You'll recognize him as the principal from the Porky's series.
Yep.
And then he also plays a senator in Attack of the Killer Tomatoes and the Andromeda Strain. So like he was just, yeah. I mean, he was already old for that time, so it's just like casting an old white guy to play a senator.
He was born in 1916.
Yeah.
Wow. He's obviously not around anymore. Wow, he was like 90 years. He was like 80 years old here. Crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he was, very old when he died. But yeah, he is just kind of he's just kind of a bit part actor. You'll find him in a bunch of stuff. I guess he also plays a judge in Air Bud. I've never seen Air Bud, so I can't tell you, but
the basketball golden retriever movies.
Yes.
Is that what Air Bud is? Nice.
Yeah. But he plays a judge in that, so.
But I did not recognize him, if I'm being honest. Like when I saw him pop up on the screen, I was like, this guy doesn't ring a bell to me at all. Like in my episode, the guy that played Boris von Orloff, his voice I recognized. I was like, this guy must have done like voiceover work for animated series and movies and stuff.
Oh yeah.
This dude, this old guy, the ice cream man, or the milkman, the ice cream man, the dairy guy. I did not recognize at all. He kind of looks like an ice cream man if you look at it in the truck and stuff.
Yeah.
I had Pete and Pete on the brain. Sorry, guys.
No, I weirdly enough, like I did recognize this guy. He's popped up in a lot. I definitely had a probably ages of 12 to 14, like for a second, a weird obsession with Porky's.
Mm-hmm.
So I do remember him from that, but yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's not a big mystery there, but yeah, he just was in a lot of stuff, and he would just pop up like almost uncredited as like, old confused old man in 90s sitcom. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he just, a lot of one episodes. You can go on his IMDb and see if you can track down those, what you want, but
what a career. I love when there's like character actors and they're just known as like confused old man, grumpy old man, old man sitting on chair. Like I'm assuming that's what this dude is from what you guys are telling me.
He literally, I'm looking through it. He literally, I just came across in a show called American Masters from 1995. He played old man.
Yeah.
Father Ambrose. Priest. Like these are the types of characters he plays.
Priest, judge, senator, and then he's also
the preacher in an episode of Delta. He played the preacher.
Yeah.
He always plays Mr. Someone or Uncle something.
And then he's also he's in an episode of Columbo as Bruno Wexler. So
he plays two episodes of Matlock. Two episodes of Matlock. He plays the same character, Old Witness.
Hell yeah.
I don't know how I would feel about that if I was just known as the old guy in everything I
he
like,
is.
I got like
Hollywood's favorite old man.
Like they're all in the writing room. They're like, we need an old guy for this scene, and the other person's like, I know someone we can cast.
Dude, it's hilarious. Okay, I know we're belaboring this, but it's really funny. He played in a TV movie in 1991, Father Francesca, and then that same year he was in 4 episodes of Cheers as Father Barry. He just plays priests and judges and just old men.
Yes. It's his favorite
Which is
thing to do.
In this, he's got like this stringy, long, like Crypt Keeper-esque hair.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, was that really his hair, or did they add that into the hat he's wearing? I'm assuming.
Yeah, they assuredly added that into the hat because like they're trying to sell him as 105. So you just assume like he's been completely unkempt in this dimension.
It would have been better if he had giant, long, creepy fingernails too, like
and like a massive beard, which would have made sense too. But it doesn't have that, so
yeah.
Well, they're not trying to sell this character as creepy or scary.
Yeah.
Like they're trying to sell him as old, because what what we eventually learn is that this is also Marshall, which I think is one of the coolest things about this episode, is that we already talked about how like it's so weird for time travel to get broached in this subject of like is being stuck out of time. But now also we have a character who is like in and out and exists in 2 points at once. So like, young Marshall and old Marshall existing at the same time. And, this milkman he's all knowing in this instance because he's already lived it. And so we get a lot of instances of him, like he already knows where Marshall lives. He already knows why he's there. He's there to help Marshall help another character who we were introduced to at the opening of the show, this girl named Janet Dorner. She's also stuck in this dimension, and the milkman knows that it's Marshall that helps her escape because he's already done it. So he just has to follow the script essentially in his brain of like, I just have to redo the things that I already did. And so I have to be there to pick myself up when I'm getting chased by the garbage men. I have to, again, pick up myself and Janet. And then I just have to deposit everybody. And I just have to just do all the stuff I already did. But I already know what's going on. Also, my milk truck is magical. But
well, there's more questions than that. I have a lot of questions about this episode. And I get it. This is a time travel episode. And we've already talked about weird logic in this. But what do you guys think? Because I was watching this with my kids, and you see when right off the bat, when Marshall walks outside, he's like, where is everybody? And there's all these bags laying out on the curb, right? All these like big garbage bags. And I didn't remember that part. And it's mentioned, but never really brought back up, that the garbage men, quote unquote garbage men with the garbage men in black, are picking up things that don't belong in this like dimension, this time dimension.
Yeah.
But they never explain what those things are. And my daughter was like, are those like dead people? Because they look like body bags.
Yeah,
sure.
And he was like, are they, she was like, what are, is that like dead people? I was like, I don't think so. And she's like, what is it? I was like, I honestly don't know. And then we were like, he says things that don't belong in this dimension. So my thought was, is it like clocks that have been turned back? Like, what are in the bags?
The whole thing is just kind of odd, because even just what is the point of this dimension existing when no one lives in it? Like, it's an empty town, basically. And it's like, what's the point of having that? Because and I know, again, we keep making fun of that. We're trying to make logical sense of these plots. But what is they keep saying this is the hour that was lost, but wouldn't there be people in that hour? But the hour's lost. It's the whole thing is just kind of
people who turn. I understand that it's just people who basically betrayed the laws of Indiana and set their time clock back. So does this dimension only exist in Indiana? It's not just
Arizona.
Eerie, but the entire state of Indiana and perhaps Arizona. So if you leave the state in this dimension, do you just drive off is it just a flat earth situation? You just drive off into the ether?
You may drive off, or you may just drive into the proper time zone. Because what is created by daylight savings time is these bubble dimensions. So
they were off to when I'm jumping ahead, but when him and the girl decide they're going to go to the Grand Canyon and stuff.
Yeah.
When they left the state, would all the people have just shown back up?
Yeah. They would have passed through a membrane, much the same way that Dr. Michio Kaku explains multiverse theory. They would have passed through a membrane that would have put them into the proper time. It's these bubble dimensions created by Indiana and Arizona. By
the Indiana legislature.
Yeah. But in 2006, Indiana decided to dissolve the bubble dimension because it cost too much.
So did anybody in the dimension die?
Well, I
or
don't
did
know.
they just get snapped back into reality?
That I don't know.
Or into the main dimension. And did it happen when the gavel was hit or when the bill was signed? Like, when did it actually happen? And also, do the men in black work for the state? Are these state employees?
Yes, they are state employees, and they're obviously also union, as most of waste management is. They,
my God.
Like going on, if they ever went on strike, you would have had this lost dimension, which I assume the bubble dimension is full of like missing socks and like just couch coins. It's all harmless stuff, but then it has to be taken out.
It's got to be a pretty mundane job because in reality, watching this episode, there's really just 2 children and an old man in this dimension, and everything else is just them picking up empty bags and shit. Mm-hmm. It's got to be really fucking boring to live and work in this dimension. So it's almost
why
like
do they care if it's clean if there's hardly anybody here? Just let it go to hell.
Well, because eventually it'll catch back up, and then you wind up with duplicates of stuff. That's the problem, is once the comes back around to springing forward, all the stuff that was lost in that half a year gets duplicated, and then you have too much matter. It creates too much matter. They have to destroy what was lost because it says on the truck they have E = MC squared. So you should understand that what they're doing is they're taking all the lost matter and retransferring it into energy for the rest of the world. And it just gets put back
so
out.
if you burn it, right, and you use that carb, you burn it like you would burn coal, let's say, then are they essentially doubling the amount of carbon emissions into our dimension?
Well, that's your silly ass
for that amount of time.
That's your silly ass for thinking they're doing fossil
I'm going to
fuels.
write a letter.
No, they're not doing fossil fuels. They're just doing pure energy transformation.
So this explains why they went.
I'm learning about all this, man. I appreciate you guys. I'm glad I came on just to learn all. I did not know. I was oblivious to all of this. Now
all the civic, like the civic unrest that happened in Indiana, right up to and including the year 2006, is an interesting part of our country's history.
Yeah. And I think you can better look at Arizona to see how everybody's brains are actually absolutely fucking cooked down there. And that is because they don't take care of their bubble dimension properly. They don't unionize those workers. And that's why everybody's goddamn fucking insane in Arizona.
Oh, man.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. Well said.
So, yeah, Marshall he gets told about this lost girl, and he's told by himself, by the milkman, that he has to help her escape. So he goes to the one shop in town, but John Astin isn't there. Instead, he gets caught in a net by Janet Dorner, and Janet is played by Nikki Cox, who some may recognize her, may not.
Yeah.
She
Unhappily
was on
Ever After, right?
Yeah. She was on a ripoff of the Married with Children, which was made by the creator of Married with Children. Yeah. It was just a ripoff version for UPN. But
I know her from Norm.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Norm Macdonald's, relatively short-lived but very funny sitcom. She was in Norm.
Yeah. She's also in a movie that I love that nobody's seen called Run Ronnie Run. And it's based off a Mr. Show sketch.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's basically like Bob Odenkirk following David Cross, and David Cross's character is just this white trash hillbilly who's always getting into fucking he's always getting into shit and is always on cops. So they just, instead of making cops, they just make a show about him running from the cops. And then he gets rich off that. And then Nikki Cox is the hot woman that comes around after he gets rich off being, a delinquent and getting arrested.
I think it's a great movie. Basically, Nikki Cox's career, I'm guessing it was this when she was a child actor. And then when she got older, she was just like the hot daughter, the hot friend, that's like the hot redhead so-and-so. That's basically what and then nowadays you don't really see her in much. Like I can't, like I forgot about her.
No, she hasn't been anything since for over a decade.
Yeah.
She must have retired from acting because it was like, I guess, she was a kid, she was in a couple of things, and then as a teenager, early 20s, in her 20s, she was just kind of typecast as like the sexy character and everything. I'm assuming the show you were talking about, Steve, with the I'm guessing that's what she played. She wasn't a kid in that, right? She was an adult. at that point,
What,
right?
in Run, Runny, Run?
Yeah. Oh, the movie.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry,
No,
it was a movie.
that movie's from 2002. So it was
Okay.
after Unhappily Ever After.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. So that was
she
probably
got
one of her later things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, she had 41 episodes in a show called Nikki.
Oh, yeah. She had her own show for a minute. Yeah.
She had her own
really?
show for a minute. Yeah, in 2000 to 2002, 2 seasons, 41 episodes, and then she was in 88 episodes of Las Vegas. So she had a role there, and then that was done in 2007, and she hasn't done much since then.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. She
But
just
I will
retired
say-
off all that money.
Yeah, she probably did all right. She was on her own sitcom in the early 2000s. She probably made some coin off that.
Yeah.
Also, I will say, between the getting to do whatever you want, including drive a car, and also just getting to like go like hang around, drive around, with like a cute redhead.
Mhm.
I remember as a kid, this was like, I was smitten by this scenario.
Right.
Of like, parents are gone, cute girl my age, we get to drive around, have adventures. Fuck yes.
Yeah.
I was all about this.
Yeah. I mean, this pretty much encapsulates everything you want. All the things that Brian just said, as well as this scene that they're having in this store. I think it was everybody's fantasy at one point to just be like locked in a department store or a Toys R Us and just have full run of the joint and like no consequences, so that you could just like ride the bikes and play the PlayStation and not, not have any, consequences to your actions for that. So it just taps into all of those like fantasies of like, I can do what I want as a kid. I'm not necessarily going to get hurt because there's nobody else around to hurt me. But then also, I can, just hang out with cool chicks and then do fun things.
I do think it's hilarious too that Marshall, Eerie is so bad he'd rather drive back to New Jersey. That's how terrible Eerie is. Which I think is, I don't know why this episode we're just shitting on states, but I just think it's like, why? Dude, like, really, Erie's that bad? You want to go back to Jersey? Come on, man. No way.
He's obsessed with Jersey. Like
I know.
But also, I think he's like obsessed with New York because 1, he's got the Brooklyn shirt on.
Yes.
And 2, like his room is populated with like New York Giants stuff. I mean, I know they play in Jersey, but like still, he's like, he's simping for the New York Giants. So that's he just wants to go back to the East Coast. He's missing CBGBs.
Yeah, right.
CBGBs.
They also do a Jimmy Hoffa gag in here as well, which kind of, there's no way. It was super, super quick. It was the first time I heard it. I didn't even write it. But she says something about, there was this guy, Mr. Hoffa showed up for a minute and he was nice or something. And yeah. And it's like, the idea is, this is how Jimmy Hoffa disappeared. He just went to a different dimension.
Yeah. He was lost in a different dimension for a while.
Yeah.
From here, it just turns into a lot of escape from the garbage men and meeting back up with the milkman. The milkman does have a secret power in the back of his truck where if you look into the truck, your face appears on a milk carton in the real world, but you also get a peer into the world that you're missing out on. So Marshall has already seen that his family is having breakfast without him. Janet, she gets to see her family is like super dour and upset because she's been gone for a year, and that gets her to miss her family and take the chance on being able to get back. And the milkman Marshall gets to explain to them, like, hey, here's how it's done. I like in the scene where Janet is looking through the back of the truck and then she comes down off the back of the truck. She's like, kind of, amazed by what she sees. And at the same time, Milkman Marshall and Marshall both say, cool, huh? So it's like, it's that tip that like we've been getting a lot of hints that they're very similar, the Milkman and Marshall, but we haven't been told overtly that they're the same person yet. But that's just a cool little bit of writing of like, you know, they both say the same line at the same time.
Yeah, we get the no, I don't know, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but this was another fun seeing my kids react to this. They've seen some other episodes, but they haven't seen this far into the season. And my 9-year-old, this was early this morning, we were watching this before my 8-year-old was up, and we're sitting on the couch. And when they finally, you know, at the end, you finally do get the kiss, right, between the two teenagers. And my oldest daughter sitting beside me, completely unironically, just responded. She just goes, "Ew." I was like, it's such a great 9-year-old response to it.
Yeah.
Like, "Ew, the fuck."
I'm guessing that's gross.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was just such a pure response. She just goes, "Ew."
Yeah. Yuck. But yeah, I think that's one of the things I think about this episode is they set her up and Milkman Marshall up as possible reoccurring characters. Like we never see them again, obviously, because it was only one season, but it seems like Milkman Marshall has like his own kind of powers that he may be able to come in and out of that bubble dimension and just may show up, you know, in the future episodes. And then it almost felt like, you know, Janet is being set up as a possible third to, you know, her and Simon and Marshall as like a gang of three in the possible future if they wanted to, you know, because she's already been a part of, you know, the weird dimension. So she knows Eerie is weird as well. So, you know, it's one of those things, you know, the separation between characters who know things are weird and know things, or the characters who deny, which would be the parents and Cindy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure if there was a second season, some of these characters would have shown up again. More than likely, that's probably what they would have done. I'm guessing if there was, you know, a second season, I could easily see one or two, both of them coming back for something.
Yeah.
Well, you could see a story coming out of the Milkman of like some backstory about why he stayed in the pocket dimension so long to help kids. And, you know, it's too late for him to go back because it's been, you assume it's been a long time, and his, you know, his family, you know, probably has thought he was dead for 50 years. Who knows how long he's been there. But yeah, you could see them trying to get him back and stuff.
Yeah. See, I didn't take it as that because we're shown the Milkman at the end of the episode and he's in the normal dimension.
So he hops.
Yeah. I think it's just because Marshall has the foreknowledge to he knows how to access that dimension, and he knows why he has to access it. He has to access it to just basically avoid paradox. So he knows when he's a 105-year-old Milkman on daylight savings time, he has to go back and help his younger self save that girl.
I see. This is just okay. Yeah, that makes more sense. Makes more sense.
Yeah, and then he hops out of the dimension at the end because we see him deliver milk to a house and drive off. So yeah,
presumably going back to wherever he. Or no, he's already in this dimension. He's back.
Right. Which also explains, because Janet has been saying like there's nobody else in this dimension. So it makes sense that Marshall the Milkman shows up just specifically on that day to save the both of them. So he wasn't in there with.
So does old Marshall live in a entirely separate dimension then? A third dimension?
No, old Marshall
he just lives in the future.
Yeah, I think we're supposed to assume that he sometime in the future finds time travel to come back to 1991.
Oh.
So he exists. He exists coexistently in the same dimension as regular Marshall, but also he knows how to access this bubble dimension to go back. So yeah,
but wouldn't there be risk of a paradox happening constantly with him interacting with his old
himself?
Self?
Yeah.
The paradox
isn't that like the one thing in movies you want to avoid doing is interacting with yourself?
That's what they say, but but Back to the Future is freewheeling and isn't like any other time travel stuff. They just made their own rules. So
I see.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Fair enough.
There's one thing I want to point out too, that a little small detail. I don't know if you guys noticed it in this episode, but Marshall's wearing boxers the entire episode and they have clocks on them. Did you guys notice that? Did you guys pick up on that?
No, I didn't see the
hysterical.
clocks.
It's so fucking funny. Literally. And it's like nonchalant. He's just wearing boxers and like sneakers the entire episode and they have clocks on them. So it's a fun little Easter egg kind of call back to like what the whole plot of this, situation is that he's in.
Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, I mean, everything works out. Janet gets to go home. Marshall uses the magic milk truck to tell Simon. And again, this just plays to Simon's character of Simon always being on board. Like, it doesn't bother him that he sees Marshall in the milk cartons missing kids portal. He just sees it, and then like Marshall tells him, "Hey, set my watch back an hour." And Simon's like, "Oh yeah, I got it. I'm on it." Obviously you disappeared somewhere. I got your back though, because I know shit's weird in Erie, Indiana, so I got you.
Shit do be weird.
Yep. Even though my episode doesn't have like a big standout, the kind of guest actors, the two of the guys who work behind the scenes, the writer and the director of this episode, are pretty interesting. The writer is Vance DeGeneres, who is Ellen DeGeneres' brother. And
interesting.
He worked on like her show and like her original sitcom. But he also wrote like an episode of Diagnosis Murder where Dom DeLuise dies. So he's got that going.
Dude,
and
Diagnosis
that's random.
Murder rules.
Yeah.
Dude, Diagnosis Murder rules.
Hell yeah.
So good.
And then the director is Bob Balaban, which you may recognize right off the name, but like he's an actor and director. You'll recognize him as an actor from a lot of the Christopher Guest films, like A Mighty Wind and Best in Show. And he's also in a lot of Wes Anderson films as of late. But he's kind of like the short, mousy guy with like just really receding hairline. You'll recognize him as soon as you see him. But like, he's a hilarious dude. But yeah, Bob Balaban directed this episode.
I always think of him as he would play the character of a director. He just looks like a director.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But he's
sure he plays a director at some point.
I'm sure he does. He looks like a director. I know, like, so for those of you who are trying to picture him, he plays David, like genre film fans, maybe this might put a face to him. He plays David in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Shorter, little kind of nerdier, guy. That is the thing that he's probably most known for with genre fans.
Yeah.
But if you have not seen A Mighty Wind, if you like Christopher Guest movies at all, go watch A Mighty Wind. It's so funny. It's fantastic. Anything else from the gang as a whole here? Like, any arguments across the board? I do want to point out that Steve's, although it's a great episode. I love the time travel stuff. I love the it's any like little boy's fantasy or little kid's fantasy type of thing. I love the Monster of the Week thing. I love the X-Files aspect. So I'm a little bummed that it doesn't have that. But it's a great episode overall. I know that mine drags a little bit. Or no, mine wraps up really fast.
Yours just runs to the end.
I will say that I think Louie's episode does drag a little bit, oddly enough, towards the end. For a 22-minute episode, you usually don't see that, but it does. Like, basically after they learn who Boris von
Orloff.
What's his name? Orloff,
yeah.
It's like, that's kind of the end of the episode. And then they kind of stretch it out for maybe 5 more minutes, but it's obviously still short. So that's where I'm at. So I will say I don't have but the transformation for me, I just want to remind you guys before we go to voting, the transformation, guys, and the quality of actors. I'm still feeling strong about mine. I guess we should get that out of the way. Does everybody still feel that their episode is the strongest?
Yeah.
Are we sticking with our initial vote?
Yeah, I'm sticking
and
with
then
initial votes.
go into second votes.
Go into second votes.
Okay, fair enough. That's usually the case.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say, all right. Yeah, I'm keeping mine for my first vote, obviously. So,
All right.
Okay.
All right. Steve, you do get to determine the order in which we vote for our second favorite.
Mm-hmm. And we'll just vote in the way we presented. So Louie will vote first, and then Brian, and then me.
All right.
So, my second vote, and I use this word loosely, the simplicity of the Lost Hour.
Mm-hmm.
And grounded, I don't think is the right word to use either because it involves time travel, but it's mostly just Marshall and Nikki Cox's character and the old man for most of the episode. Even Simon's kind of an afterthought. He's really just there to look at the milk carton through the magical milk mobile, I was about to say.
Milkmobile.
The milkmobile. So what I like about your episode, Steve, is that it is so kind of contained. It's really simple to kind of understand. Whereas the Mr. is Chaney, right? Chaney, Mr. Chaney is
Mr. Chaney, yeah.
That episode, to me, it almost there's certain times where the lottery aspect and the werewolf aspect feel a bit disjointed. That's kind of how I feel. I mean, I love all three, if I'm being real with you guys, but I could see myself watching The Lost Hour more because it moves so quick. It just boom, boom, boom. You know, it hits all the beats. I wouldn't call the garbage Men in Black a monster of the week, but it does have like a protagonist that's chasing them the entire antagonist, the entire episode. So I guess they'd be kind of the monster of the week in your episode, you know, instead of just a flat out werewolf mummy. So yeah, I think the Lost Hour is going to be my second pick.
Right on. Yeah, there is peril provided by the garbage men. Like basically this is why I think this is adapted from the Langoliers somewhat, because there's those, you know, I mean, we see them as chain chomp monsters in the fucking TV show. Yeah. Right, yeah. So, but yeah, I think, you know, just that little bit of peril keeps things moving rather than just trying to convince the kids to leave the dimension.
Yeah. And they're menacing looking.
Yeah,
you know, like they're, you know, the all black, the glasses, like you guys said, like, so like they are kind of chasing them. They just look human. So that's why we're like, oh, they're not really anything special. But I think it adds a certain element that there is something hunting them down and they're kind of avoiding it, you know?
Yeah.
So I'll vote next, obviously. I think that for the same reason that you guys are saying, I really wanted there to be more peril. I felt like there wasn't. It was more just like a time paradox, and it never felt like there were any type of risk. Like the big thing that makes a lot of kids shows scary, and my youngest daughter put it in perspective today unintentionally. She's not as big into the spooky stuff. My 9-year-old's the one who loves the spooky stuff.
Yeah.
So we were watching it. She's also the early riser. So we get up in the morning a lot, and we've watched all the Universal monster movies together. She loves this stuff. My youngest, she's not as much into it. So she caught just this last episode, and she caught a little bit of the next one. And we were watching America's Scariest Home Videos, and she was like, it was the episode where the family, or it was one of the two. And she was like, I hate these types of shows when parents don't believe the kids.
Yeah.
She just said that to herself, like out loud, like that stresses her out. And that's why she doesn't like this type of stuff. But that is a huge component of kids horror for kids or spooky things for kids, is the parents don't understand and you're on your own now.
Right.
And the reality of having to solve the problem on your own. And I feel like there wasn't a lot of that although they did have to solve the problem on their own, they had an adult that was there to save them, which was the milkman. And they also they never really felt like there was peril. Like I'm saying like a lot. The redheaded girl, Janet.
Yeah, Janet.
She kind of was happy. She didn't want to get away. She was actually considering staying there.
I think,
and even then,
it's not that she was
Marshall.
Happy. It's not that she was happy. It's just that she had become accustomed to living that way. So it's not that she was happy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the peril for this episode isn't just the milkmen, but it's that you get trapped in that dimension for a year. So it's a
she
literal...
literally was like, she said, I love it here. I get to do whatever I want, whenever I want. Nobody tells me what not to do. You could argue that deep down she missed her family, and obviously she did. She chose to go back.
Yeah.
But she was torn. She actually she was digging it there. She was digging life there for that year. And even then, you might argue that Marshall was just kind of baiting her into convincing her that that's the case, that she should go back. But in reality, Marshall was also like, we should go to the Grand Canyon. We should go to Disney World. Like, let's do all this stuff. So it just was almost like a fantasy. It reminded me more of like a Disney story where it's like, oh, there's this fantasy land, but you know, we do actually have to go back. And that's the sobering moment. There never felt like anybody was really in danger. Now, if the garbage men would have been like pursuing them more, and it would have been a little bit of a Halloween 3 thing with like, you know, guys in suits showing up and you know, you don't have to crush anybody's head, but if they had to be quiet and hide out in the shop, or if they had to escape, closely escape them, instead it's just them kind of mentioning, oh, those guys, a couple times. So they never really feel threatening outside of that very first time that Marshall encounters them. So it didn't really feel scary at all for me. It just, you know, the space time thing I think was done well, but there was that anxiety, that horror element of not only, even when they knew it wasn't a real monster, it wasn't a real mummy, it was the idea that we got to fix all this and get the brother out, because we're going to get it. And it wasn't even like our brother's never going to be gone. It's just, we're going to get in trouble from mom and dad. Like that was the threat. That's enough anxiety for a kid, you know, to make it scary. So for that reason, I think I'm going to go with America's Scariest Home Videos, and the vibes of the whole episode. The aesthetic was, you know, right up my alley. The fog, so good. I know we joked about how much fog, but genuinely, I love the fog so much. Like the scene where they're outside, like arguing and wrestling around, Simon and Marshall, and then the trick-or-treaters just walk by on the street and are like, those two are crazy. You know what I mean? Like, I just love that aesthetic of like that spooky, you know, foggy trick-or-treat night. So I'm gonna go with that one, I think.
Okay. For me, I want to like Mr. Chaney more, because like it's a good reference, it's a good setup to an episode, but it was obvious they just had too much episode for they had too much episode, and so they just run through everything, and they run so quickly that they don't even think about a lot of the stuff they're doing, and it's all in service to just run up to a puberty gag at the end. And it's like, and the Mr. Chaney character is introduced in this episode and then taken away. Like, you never feel like he's ever going to come back to the episodes. Like, you never think he's going to come back to the show the way, like, the milkman. And it's more understandable that Boris von Orloff doesn't ever come back, because he's already a dead actor and he just lives in the TV. So it's okay that he goes away. But it feels like Mr. Chaney should, like, he's been a part of this. Apparently he's a part of the town lore, because he's been killing people on, you know, Wolf Mountain, you know, sending them to Spain.
But he really only gets involved in town matters once every 13 years.
Yeah. When he's hungry, when it's time for him. Yeah. So I don't know.
Exactly. He's a fucking werewolf.
Yeah, it just feels weird that like this character shows up out of nowhere and he has like a bunch of influence. I do think it is funny that of all the things that like are dictated by the werewolf being happy, taxes is among them.
Yeah,
like
we didn't mention that. Low taxes.
Yeah. For whatever, so somehow the werewolf has power.
He's still a guy in town. He's still trying to sell this idea. We got to keep this going. How do you do it? Promise lower taxes.
Yeah. So I love Stephen Root. The transformation scene is pretty sick. Like, everybody should see this episode, but it's just like, I don't know. It's just not a well put together piece of TV.
Yeah.
It's like, I think mine is the best written, and it is like the best, it may not feel like the most Eerie, Indiana episode, which is fine, but I think it's the best written and best put together. This one is just, it feels like a mess, and they just rushed everything. So I'm going to go with America's Funniest Videos because it is, or America's Scariest Videos, because like it has plenty of fun references like Brian's episode. It has, just like goofy mummy stuff. It has the sister doing dumb stuff just like Brian's episode. So they share so much DNA between each other, but also you get Harley Schwarzenegger.
Yeah. Harley Schwarzenegger Holmes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you get little lizards named Godzilla and Mothra. So yeah, it's a lot of shared DNA. I do think they give up the ghost too quickly by revealing that Orloff, it's just Orloff and not an actual mummy. But that also happens in other episodes. That happens in an episode that I didn't pick, the Loyal Order of the Corn, where like it looks like it's going to be an Illuminati episode, but then they reveal like there's not actually a bad guy. It's just like an alien looking for help. So it happens in these shows. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you though, that the that's what I was saying. It's like it feels a little disjointed, like the lottery aspect, the wolf aspect. It's like two ideas mashed together. Let's see if it works. I agree with you. So
yeah,
I mean, I love the episode still, but
if it was like a 40-minute like actual X-Files length episode, it probably would rule. But it's just like it's just too much crammed in and too wrapped up too easily, and like doesn't dwell on enough stuff. But
well, boys, you know what that means. Once again, Steve and I have fallen to our guest. The guest is taking home the Showdown episode. Actually, that hasn't happened in a little while, but we went on a streak there for a while of getting our asses kicked on our own show. But here it is once again. Louie is taking home the son of a bitch and championship strap for the Showdown episode in June. What that means, Louie, and if you choose to take advantage of that, is you can provide for us a punishment film or episode or something that we have to watch to discuss next week. Oftentimes Steve and I will pick really horrible things to damage each other psychologically. We don't always do that. Sometimes we just do a fun thing we've been wanting to do for a long time. We also do give the guest the option, no pressure obviously, but we give the option to come back on and talk about your punishment episode in the next mini-sode if you want, but you can also just phone in a punishment episode and laugh at us from afar. So not that you have to have one ready, but
I kind of have one ready.
All right.
Okay.
Hey, even better. Even better.
I've got to see. So I've told you guys I'm a filmmaker. I've been in the game a long time. Now, I don't know if it's available. It's easy to find. There's a chance this might be up, and there's a chance this might be up. It's in its entirety on YouTube somewhere. If not, we could work something out where I can get you guys a video file of it so you guys can watch it. But I wrote a movie when I was 25 years old called Blood Slaughter Massacre. It's terrible. So if you guys want, I can figure out it did get a physical release. It was streaming. It's not streaming anywhere right now. But if you guys want, you guys can actually talk and review a terrible slasher movie I wrote with a bunch of my friends and got it made for over 10 years ago now. So
I love it. What years? I am on board. We've done this with Steve because Steve is also a filmmaker. We have watched films. We've watched Steve's student film from Penn State Film School. We've watched other things that Steve's worked on. But what is the year of Blood Slaughter Massacre?
So Blood Slaughter Massacre came out, I believe it was 2013. So
all right.
I'm looking it up right now. Yeah, 2013. It is on everything. IMDb. If you Google it, you can find lots of information. It was directed by my friend Manny Serrano, who's also a filmmaker. and I wrote the script with him and shot it. It's got a 3 out of 10 on IMDb right now. So there you go. It's not a 1. It's not a 1.5, but it's pretty rough. No. So there you go.
All right. I'm excited for this. We are going to watch for our punishment episode next week. We're going to watch a movie that Louie wrote called Blood Slaughter Massacre from 2013. I feel like we've talked about this broadly before, but I have not experienced this, and I'm very excited to. Do you show up at all in the movie?
Yeah.
All right, we'll look for you. We'll look for 10.
All of us were everyone involved in the movie. I can give you guys a really brief backstory. So, you know, I'm a director now. That's mostly what I do. I'm a director editor. Obviously, Haunted Hangover is a big part of my life too. And this was kind of like my first big thing. Like, we're actually going to make this movie. So obviously on a really low budget indie level, everyone that's involved behind the scenes, even if it's just your arm or something, has to make an appearance to kind of help and do something if you need a role filled. And in this case, I do actually have a line, terribly acted, and a sequence, an entire scene. And see if you guys can catch me. And number 2, I apologize in advance. My condolences for you guys having to sit through it right now. So, you know, Manny's actually one of my co-hosts on the, he's one of my many co-hosts on Haunted Hangover, and we joke around about it. We joke all the time. Blood Slaughter Massacre. What a piece of shit. That's like it's a joke we kind of tell ourselves.
That's why I was going to say,
so.
I feel like I've heard the name before, and it was probably from listening to you guys on the podcast.
Yeah,
so, no, I'm excited. I'm excited. Yeah. We are going to talk about that on the next episode.
Perfect. Can't wait to hear what you guys think.
It's gonna be a blood slaughter massacre.
Yes,
I'm excited for it.
Yes.
All right. Steve, anything else we need to talk about? Anything else we need to mention before we wrap up this son of a bitchin' episode?
No, nothing on my mind. This will be specific to Brian though. They're remaking the video game Night Slashers.
I did see it. I saw that too. That game's awesome. I can't wait.
Yeah. So it's in the works. I saw a little trailer of it. I don't know that I'm sold at the moment, because the animation looks they did away with the pixel art and they're doing like almost Flash animation, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm sold on that yet, but it's in the works.
That's kind of obnoxious. That is a fun game that is strangely brutal and ultra violent, and I love it so much. So I will check that out. Maybe we'll get a chance to review that here. When's it coming out?
I don't know. And Ron,
gotcha,
in the Discord also just pointed out that Silent Hill 2, its remake comes out in October. So,
that one's gonna be on my list. That's one of my all-time favorite games. One of my all-time favorites. That game scared the living fuck out of me when I played it as a kid.
That's a pants pisser.
Yeah. All right, boys and ghouls, thanks for joining us for another Showdown episode. And if you got some suggestions for upcoming mini-sodes or for Showdown topics for the month of July, get them in, because we'll be spinning that son of a bitch wheel here real dang soon, boys and ghouls. So get those over to us. Follow us on all the social medias, and you can shoot us one suggestions or a whole list of them if you want. We'll put them on the wheel in the DMs on the social media. So once again, Louie, thank you for joining us. It was an absolute pleasure. If you like this show, if you like spooky ooky shit, and especially if you like Halloween stuff, I'll say one more time, I'm a big fan. I've listened to probably every single episode. Go check out Louie's podcast, The Haunted Hangover. It's a lot of fun. And this is the time of year, I imagine, when your listenership shoots up pretty dramatically.
Yeah, I want to thank you guys. Thank you for having me on again.
Yeah, sure.
It's
you're always welcome.
A pleasure. Always a blast. Whenever you guys need me, let me know. And yeah, man. Right now things are picking up now. Got the Halloween special. I'm figuring out what's happening with that this year, and it's always chaotic with Haunted Hangover and me and everything else I got going on. So, but yeah, thank you. I'm always down to be back on your guys' show. So,
we love having you, buddy. Thank you once again. And for the Halloween is Forever crew, I'm Brian.
And I'm Steve.
And I'm Louie.
All right. See you later. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.